Ambient noise, yeah.
So now you grabbing some band lab clips.
Now for me that would also be something where I would use like volume automation and like bring that from the bottom, like bring it in and then bring it back out.
And these are the kinds of sounds you can stretch. With this AI, like stretching it actually can be cool.
Oh, that was perfect for the interlude too.
Ends it right in the right
I
spot.
didn't even notice 40. I didn't even realize the texture faded out at the interlude until it happened. I'm like, wait a minute.
Sometimes you just, it was just meant to be that way.
Oh, another
Aha.
Thursday.
Another Thursday. Welcome, everyone.
Hello. And may the fourth be with you.
May the 4th be with you. I forgot my lightsaber in my other outfit, but we'll bring it next time.
I totally forgot it was the fourth till Jason reminded me last night. I'm glad he
Hmm.
did because it ended up helping me with what I was searching for.
Nice. There you go.
Yeah, we
That
got a
always helps.
nice variety of stuff tonight.
Yeah, I saw a little sneak peek of some here. I'm excited. Got a bunch of different topics to hit too. So it's kind of a mixed bag. It's not a whole theme, but it's a whole bunch of different things, which is good.
Oh, and one of the things we're going to be looking at, this bad boy here.
Yeah.
You showed me this the other night, and
Mhm.
oh, this might be the coolest one yet that
Yeah.
we've looked at.
That's the thing is if it does half of what it looks like, I mean, just with the reacting to the sticks as well as to the touch, as well as being, I mean, talk about fully programmable. I mean, that's a heck of an interface you're looking at there. And if it has one point that's I believe Jake brought up was about the tactile, how tactile it is. It's one of those questions like how is the balance? Yeah, I think you mentioned it. I think he mentioned it. How's the bounce feel? Like, does it feel right as a drum with a drumstick, and does it feel like a good bounce with the finger, and does it also feel like a good slide when you try to glide across and do things?
Yeah, and
Combination of things.
look at some of these examples. I mean, you got a
Yeah.
thousand LEDs in this thing.
Yep.
I mean, it can make a virtual piano,
Sure.
play virtual drums.
Hmm. I'm thinking virtual mixer, like volume, like levels and things. You can like
Yeah,
controls, have a whole
look,
control corner over there.
they've got it set up here to actually do steps and divisions, BPM.
Nice.
I mean, they really did put a lot of thought into this thing.
Yeah. That's why
And
when I
and
saw that, I was like, we definitely got to look at that. We definitely got to talk about that. And we definitely got to see about getting our hands on one of those
yeah,
because that
and
just looks too cool.
this is one of the freshest new controllers. I mean, it really is just coming out. Like
Hmm.
they were at NAM. We're going to be looking at one of the videos.
Nice.
They just started like displaying this in 1,000 sensors, not just
Hmm.
1,000 LEDs. Jeez.
1 millisecond. How fast are you?
Well, and it follows the MIDI 2 specs, which
Mhm.
nowadays MIDI 2 is finally here.
And it's so small and portable looking. I mean, just yeah.
Yeah,
To me, that's a win in so many categories. The whole question to me is durability and those other things I mentioned about the look and feel and the response time and all of that. It looks like by the numbers, it looks amazing, and from what we've seen of people using it, it looks amazing. So
yeah.
I have nothing bad to say about it. I would definitely love to get one to check it out.
Oh yeah, and it does look tough. I mean,
Yep.
I won't know till I actually touch one, but
Yep. Yep. Exactly. But as far as the concept goes, I mean, that's amazing. We have seen some in the past where it was like a computer keyboard, for example, that has the fully customizable keys where you can have individual images, icons on each key. So that if you're playing a video game, for example, you can have the keys, not a letter E, but it's an action button or an explosion or whatever. You can have whatever you want on there. But in order to have something like this, I mean, this would be amazing for so many different reasons. Ranging from being able to go, if you go higher on the pad, it's a more intense hit. For example, if you're doing something like MIDI programming, if you're programming drums, you could program drums and use it as an input controller, where you have much more granularity as to where you're hitting things. Just a little bit higher on the pad will be louder, and lower is softer, that kind of thing.
yeah,
I could see a lot of things.
seeing him play there with the sticks really gets me going.
Yeah, yeah. Plus, it just
Oh,
looks fun to play with in general.
and it won't break the bank. I mean,
Mhm.
I was surprised that it was actually going out at, I mean, 700 euros, but
Mhm. Nice.
I
And
don't know
that's
the
that's
exact
not that's not ridiculous.
conversion, but yeah, that's less in American dollars, right?
I don't have the conversion in front of me either, but I do know that it's more than $100.
Now, I noticed they only had the A plug for US, but
Mhm.
it is USB 3.
USB 2 they mentioned, right? For the or sorry, no, MIDI 2, USB 3, right?
Yeah, the MIDI 2 standards and USB 3
Hmm.
speeds.
Right, right. And again, just so versatile from what I see there. Crazy.
Yep, that is definitely going to be on my wish list.
Hmm. And I think we had a couple different videos on that one that go over some of the details on it or some of the specs about it, some
Yeah,
uses for it.
the first one I'd like to actually do is the NAM one because you know they really show things off at NAM. I wish that I
Mhm.
could go. Like that is one of those events that I've been wanting to go to for years, like Comic-Con.
Yeah, that'd be a bit of a
For
journey for you from where you are, though. So I can
yeah,
see why it would be difficult
Jason
logistically.
Jason almost got a chance to last year. He actually got some tickets.
Yeah, that's his backyard, though. So yeah, I can see that being an easier trip for him.
So we're gonna visit NAM from 2 weeks ago and see what they showed off on this thing.
Nice. Let's see.
Hey Edgar, so we're here in the heart of NAM. It's very loud here, but you've got a beautiful array of your touch surfaces. This looks absolutely fantastic. So can you tell me a little bit about this? Because I've seen it. It's been around a while.
Yeah, it's been a couple of years. We met Synthplex a few months ago in LA already.
Yeah, I thought so.
And so yeah, Erai Touch comes in many flavors. We have different layouts here. So we have a drum unit here. We have two sequencers running with a little filter controlling it. And here displaying with so yeah, it's kind of fun to have all the layouts at once and look at them. It's very, easy and visual to manipulate.
So, because I've noticed there's MPE going on here as well as everything else. So these are effectively touch control surfaces that you can configure yourself, right? Is that the way it works?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way it works is, you see, it's a silicon cover, and underneath the silicon you have about 1,000 LEDs and 1,000 force sensors. So everything you see here is touch sensitive. As you can tell, the ripple here goes bigger as I press harder. So this is the aftertouch. And the same goes for all the continuous gesture.
And you've got release.
We have release velocity, as you noticed. So if I release slowly, I have no harmonics, but as I release faster, I get the lift.
What are you using as sound source in that? Are you using a MPE-enabled instrument to make that as well, right? To make the sound source of that?
Yeah, the sensor. Yeah, it's similar technology.
Okay.
Yeah, similar.
So you can hit them with sticks as well. It's not just fingers, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. So actually, can I get the drumsticks? I'll show you in a second. Thank you so much. So it actually works with drumsticks too. The rebound is very fast, as you can tell, and you can also map the X and Y axis to different control change. So here I have 60 and 61 on the control changes, and I could be mapping the X and Y axis to have different sounds if I hit here or here. So here it's not mapped, but I could just alter the stereo, the reverb, any effects.
Wow, that's really interesting. So, I mean, how do you achieve that level of sensitivity and durability at the same time? Because they have to be sensitive enough for fingers,
yes,
but also durable enough for sticks, right?
Yeah, but the dynamics was a big challenge to have very low threshold of detection, to be able just to caress and to already get the touch gesture, but also to be able to have very fast and strong hits like with drumsticks.
So how are these connected? Is it USB, Bluetooth, or what's going on with these?
So you have a USB-C here, and we also have mini jack here that goes to Tira L for hardware synthesizers. And so, yeah.
So MIDI, right? Okay.
Yeah, MIDI, absolutely. So you can plug your MIDI DIN.
I mean, these have been available for some time. I mean, how can people buy these, and what sort of price are they going at?
So it goes for 850 euros and dollars, about the same.
Okay, and I noticed there were some configuration options from the unit themselves. I mean, do you have to set them up in software, or can you use them?
So yeah, the way you configure those layouts is using the Array Lab editor.
Right. Okay.
So it's very easy. You can just like plug and play, create
and then just
create
map.
layouts. Yeah, you just change the colors, make elements. You would be able to just drag and drop elements such as a little keyboard here. I can stretch it.
And that's happening real time on this guy.
And yeah, that's happening in real time on the product. And this is where you change the animations, colors, uploads, new layouts. You can save up to 16 times 2 layouts. I'm saying times 2 because for each layout you have alt mode.
Right, so you can recall them for later. You don't need to be hooked up to the computer.
Yeah. And so each layout could be mapped to one MIDI channel. So here, for example, channel 2. But you have more complex layouts, like such as this one, where you have different channels. So for example, here I have a drum going on channel 2. Here I have a little keyboard, kind of, going on channel 1.
Right.
And mixer, 2D faders, and other effects. You can also create custom objects, like the skull here. And for example, I just programmed it to go elsewhere. So have a very quick access to another layout. It's very handy in a live situation when you perform to be able to switch between, you know, like your layout for track 1 to track 2 and so on.
So what's it using? Is it using MIDI or is it using OSC? What's the protocol?
It's all MIDI. It has MIDI MPE as well. And yeah, pretty much.
If you use OSC as well, you could use it to control other devices. Is that something you're thinking about?
Yeah, you could be using it for live control, and actually Rick Feds that perform with us here use it to control Resolume, so all the visual mappings.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess also you could kind of use them as feedback displays. They could be just information
Absolutely.
coming back to
Yeah,
them.
like view meters, we use it a lot. Actually, Jean-Michel Jarre uses 4 touch just as view meters.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I asked you how much it was. So I think we're going to have a short performance from these guys.
Oh, yeah.
So could you tell me who they are, and then we can...
So yeah, we have here Rick Feds. He makes beats, and we have De Laurentiis, a Persian artist. She uses the touch mostly to control her voice.
Right, okay.
And they will be performing on Saturday on the Yamaha stage.
Nice.
And yeah, we are lucky to have them every day at NAMM to just like perform and showcase the product. So yeah, maybe we can ask Rick to do a quick demo of what he's doing. You'll see it goes fast. He
That's
plays
great.
very fast.
Okay, well, whenever you're ready.
Rick, you guys ready? Yeah?
And I was there again with him. That ship died for evening. These words were arrows, and I was the bird. The walls were green, the lights blurred. I bet that eyes fell into tears, and suddenly someone just like me appeared. And she took my hand, and we ran, and we ran. You'll be more than dreams. You'll be more than gods. You'll be a woman.
That's great. May I just take a shot of your name badge so that we can get for the
Well done.
everybody? Do you have a name badge as well? Just so we spell everything correctly.
Hey, how you doing, James?
At Synthplex.
Absolutely.
Sonic.
Wow, that was great review just coming out of the expo like that.
Absolutely. Crazy. And just the amount of control that he has there and just seeing how responsive it is as drums, he's just using finger drums there. It looks amazing.
Oh, and it looks like such a fun instrument to actually have a couple of them in the room and people playing off of it off each other.
Absolutely.
That's the kind of instrument I could jam with a room full of.
Definitely.
Yeah, that was a Sonic State over on YouTube.
Mhm.
I like their format there. They're covering all this stuff at NAMM. I
Mhm.
gotta check out what else they've. He asked the right questions. Every question he asked was the ones that I was, thinking about.
Yep. Makes a good interview. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Going over all the details that everybody wants for the review. Absolutely.
yeah. The tactical feedback question. I mean, that's
Mhm.
like kind of first on my question list.
Yep. Top of mind. Absolutely. And again, it looks like it's amazing in all categories. So I mean, without actually touching one, I can't really say for sure, but that looks like it would definitely be one that would be on my list.
Yeah, and I can't believe how customizable
Mhm.
all the different MIDI expressions and controls that you can. It, basically, you can program it to make any adjustment to any MIDI device
Mhm.
or trigger sounds.
Yep. And I can see using the initial impact and the aftertouch for other so you got the x-axis, the y-axis on buttons that you can create, but you can also have how fast you hit it, how hard you hit it, how slow you let it go. All those different things can control different aspects of the sound.
Yeah, what did he say? 16 blocks you could program
I think
set
you're
up.
saying, well, as far as physically on it, it looks like you can make even more than that. As small as you could make a button with those 1,000 sensors. I'm thinking you could make buttons that are super tiny if you wanted to. The 16 was the preset pages, so that would be like the whole layout. So like take a snapshot from 10,000 feet of the layout, and that's one, and then you can do 16 of those, and then there's a page two for another 16, or like on any page, like on preset 7, there's a 7 and there's a 7 alternate, so like a 7
Uh,
and a 7B. So like of those 16, each one has an A and a B.
a
So you get the
lot
total
of
of the 32 layouts.
possibilities, not just for music. I mean, I could see
Oh yeah,
using that as an OBS controller,
absolutely.
uh, game controller. Shit.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
you were also talking about a scrub wheel for video. I mean, obviously, you could make that happen on there in several ways.
yeah, you could program it to be a scrub wheel.
Yeah, like when you're going, very low on the bottom, that's really slow going forward. But the higher you go, the faster it'll go. Things like that. You could program that kind of difference into the controller. I'm sure.
Well, I don't want just one. After seeing his setup, 6 was actually the perfect setup. If I could have 6 of those in front of me,
Mhm.
I'd go nuts.
I wouldn't mind starting with 2, like sitting in front of whatever, like if you even have a regular keyboard for old fashioned keyboard, like as the middle, and then on the side you have one of each of those on each side to do things with. I
Oh,
can
and
see that
two
being useful.
two would actually be perfect for you could be using one to actually trigger and play sounds and using the other one to actually do expression.
Yeah, exactly. And when he did show the one button, the skull, and he showed the one button switch from that layout to the other layout, the only pet peeve I would have, or the thing that I would make as a difference, is wherever that skull button was on the page it flips to, there's a skull button in that same spot that flips back to the first one. So that you hit that button, that goes from 7 to 7B. You hit that button again, that goes from 7B to 7A. So that would be the one thing that I would make sure to have for a switch like that. Just so it's a toggle. It's like I'm either on this page or I'm on this page, but it's the same button in the same place to make it flip from one to the other.
It
Very cool
looks
though.
yeah, it looks easy enough to assimilate into your music abilities.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. And just again being that versatile, I mean, I couldn't even think of 32 layouts of what to do with it at the beginning, but by the end I'd be like, why can't I have more slots to save things? Because I have so many more things I want to do with it, because I could see it becoming that useful for so many different things.
Yeah, yeah. So we've got a second video, because I mean I was really intrigued with this one.
Oh yeah,
I
absolutely.
will probably be watching a whole bunch of videos just to see it in action, but this guy does a good job of like showing
Mhm.
it in action, what it does. Another great new channel added to our YouTube.
Nice, nice.
This one's Matthias Holmgren,
Yep.
and you can find him on YouTube. Ooh, I'm clicking the restream stream. He is at Matthias Holmgren,
There you go.
just like it's spelled.
Nice. Grow as
I
a,
like
yeah.
I like when they do it like that.
It's a good way to do it. And we've got in the same hardware, right? So we're seeing another video about it, which is definitely awesome in terms of seeing how other people use the same things.
Yeah, I really want to see it in practice.
Yeah, exactly. Very cool.
So here's Matthias.
And you can play with drumsticks. Hi, Matthias here. I have a newfound love for expressive MIDI controllers, or MPE controllers. It really gives you a whole new level of expression for your music and performances. So today we have a brand new friend here in the studio, the Area Touch from Embode Me. Right, so this is a Area Touch from Embode Me, and you can see it's a quite sturdy design, quite heavy, seems like it's built like a tank. There's a silicone surface which is pressure sensitive, and you have like 1,000 different LEDs which will light up depending on what kind of gestures you perform or press here on the surface. Right, so if you want to check out the Area Touch after watching my video, you can find a discount code in the video description, which will give you a 10% discount and a small affiliate kickback to me. So it's a win-win for both of us. Right, so what's the benefits of using an MPE compatible MIDI controller like the Area Touch compared to your ordinary MIDI keyboards? With an MPE compatible controller you can do polyphonic pitch bends. And you can slide between notes. And you can play with drumsticks. Finally, you can also hook up the Area Touch to your ordinary MIDI gear and synths with a bundled MIDI DIN to a MIDI TRS cable. Okay, so let's make some music with the Area Touch. In the following song demo, I'm going to use a couple of different instruments. We'll be playing drums, synths, bass and effects with a couple of patches from my Omega presets pack for the Vital Synth, which you can see in the background here, which is an MPE compatible VST instrument. A track is nothing without a transition or riser effect, so I created this noise sweep effect, and with this large XY pad on the Area Touch, we can control the filter with the Y-axis, and with the X-axis left to right we can control the panning. I'm also adding a little bit of reverb and delay when we reach the top region of the Y-axis. And to change or attach the parameters of a pad, you can just press and hold the top button up here. And here we can basically select the CC value. Here we're sending CC60 on the X-axis and CC61 on the Y-axis. And CC59 on the Z-axis. But you can easily change this directly on the device. And also MIDI learn this to a parameter in your synth. Let's quickly swap up the layout of the Area Touch. We can press this button on the side here and change from layout 12 to layout number 5. And there we have the layout for the percussion, which we're gonna play with drumsticks. The bass in this arrangement is also from my Omega Vital presets pack, and if we open the Vital Synth and we look at the pitch bend, the key here is to make the pitch bend respond to 12 semitones. That means that if we slide between different notes on the keypad, they will respond to the actual note values and pitch values. Let's open the Matrix tab in the Vital Synth, and we can see that we have the source mod wheel attached to the filter effects cutoff. And the mod wheel is attached to the y-axis of the keypad here, so we can control the filter just by swiping upwards. Which is quite cool. So let's make a quick little performance with this setup. And in our DAW Bitwig Studio we can clearly see all these pitch bend to the different notes that we did during this bass performance. So it's really cool that you can glide between the notes like this and to get a more expressive performance when working with an MPE controller like the Era Touch. Varför ser man inte noterna? Which we're gonna play with. Oj.
Oh, that's what I wanted to see was the sticks.
Yep. To see how the response was, and it looks awesome. I mean, yeah, looks perfect for the response there.
Oh, and I'll tell you, Mateus, when I'm ready to buy one, I will use that discount on your affiliate.
Absolutely. Wouldn't mind checking one out if they want to send us one, but at the same time, absolutely.
Yeah, any discount, always appreciated.
Most definitely. And that's definitely an intriguing controller. So versatile that it is, and speaking like Yoda today on the 4th, but it is a very versatile controller that has so many uses. And we've seen a few different ones that we've looked at in the last couple of weeks of different uses. And I like the fact that it seems to be, something that's happening more. Things that are just, it's not just a keyboard, it's not just a guitar, but now we have something else. Whether it's kind of a drum controller, whether it's kind of a pad. I like that it's all opening up in that regard.
Yeah, and that one we looked at a couple weeks ago was the Osmos.
I think
You
so.
get some of the same sliding key up and down features over here. That MPE slide effect, or sliding between the keys and making them programmable like that.
Yep.
MPE definitely has me intrigued.
Yeah, that filter effect, even just the amount of control you had over an effect, just with that whole pad being your open surface, and just the higher you're hitting, it's more this. The left and right is the panning and all that. You can change so much. Even just in a final mix, you could be doing something like that with if you're adding reverb at a certain section or whatever. Certain songs have spots where you would want to bring that kind of thing up. You can use that as a controller for that sort of gesture. Very, very cool. I like it a lot.
Yeah, another great review. You can find it at Mateus Holmgren, and here, proof.
Boom.
Click subscribe.
You're on the list, my friend.
Hey, if he's talking music, gear, production, design, I don't know what Bitwig is, but I'm now intrigued.
Nice. Absolutely. And again, we're assembling the list here, a list of all stars of videos that we find that have great content that we can add to the list, so that we can be informed when they post new content, get it all out there, bring it together for you guys so that we can all share it together and see what it's all about.
Oh yeah, when you look at our subscriptions here, it's getting there.
Yeah.
We got a bunch of cool resources.
We're not stuck in one lane. We like to vary it out. It's not all guitar guys. It's not all keyboard guys. It's not all music guys. I mean, there's stuff in here from AI, but mostly stuff from music, even if it's AI centered music or music of any kind. There's just so many different things: production, music theory, lessons, all that kind of thing.
Yeah, everything to do with music.
Yep. It's good to make a dedicated channel.
And speaking of, when it comes to everything to do with music, the king of everything to do with music.
Oh yeah.
One of my favorites on YouTube, bar none.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, Rick Beato.
Everything music.
Everybody who loves music should subscribe to this channel.
Yep. I just saw he posted
And
a birthday thing a couple weeks ago.
you know, the great thing with him, no matter what subject we're doing on any given night,
Mhm.
I can almost always find something about that subject in his library of videos. Because when I was searching for, May the 4th related, I really wanted to see if anybody had, talked about the impact of Star Wars
Mhm.
and the music, the impact it has had on musical scores, because it is a very influential musical score.
Absolutely.
And
Now I do know
he
of at least
he had mentioned when he was teaching his kid,
Mhm.
establishing the kid had like perfect pitch.
Mhm.
That was one of the scores that his kid was relating to,
Exactly.
a
That's what I was going to mention, the
one
interval
five.
training, talking about that. He was relating that to that song exactly.
Yeah, 1 5 5 5 5 5 6 5.
Yep. There you go. And that's what it is relating that interval to a song that you already know to make it that much more, to make it sink in, so that when you hear that interval, you recognize it as that song. You can say, oh well, if now you can find the first note and it's a C, then you're going up to the G and get that fifth in
I can play Star Wars.
there. 2 notes.
I've wanted to since I was a kid. And what I really like about this one, because I actually found a couple of them, and I could only pick one, but this one was the perfect one, because he talks about how John Williams, he was influenced by Holt's The Planets,
Mhm.
specifically Mars, The Bringer of War, which is
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
all-time favorite Holt's piece of all
Nice.
the Planet pieces. I mean, I love the whole album,
Hmm.
but Mars was the creme de la creme.
Yeah. Good theme too.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised that it influenced John Williams when he was writing the stars. When I first heard Mars, I thought Star Wars,
Hmm.
so it was a good compliment in his inspiration.
Nice. Rick Beato always got something good to say.
Yeah, may the 4th be with you.
Yes.
Everyone, I'm Rick Beato. Today's Everything Music is called John Williams versus Gustav Holst, or Star Wars versus the Planets. John Williams was influenced by a number of composers such as Wagner, Stravinsky, Richard Strauss, Erich Korngold, but especially Gustav Holst. In today's episode, I will show you the melodic and harmonic influences that Holst had on John Williams' music in Star Wars. That's coming up next. Gustav Theodor Holst was born on September 21st, 1874. He was an English composer, arranger, and teacher, but best known for his orchestral suite, The Planets. His distinctive compositional style was the product of many influences like Wagner, Richard Strauss, Ravel, Grieg, Ralph Vaughan Williams, and so on. The Planets, Opus 32, is a 7-movement orchestral suite written between 1914 and 1916. Each movement of the suite is named after a planet of the solar system and its corresponding astrological character as defined by Holst. The concept of the work is astrological rather than astronomical, which is why there's no Earth movement in the piece. Each movement is intended to convey ideas and emotions associated with the influences of the planets on the psyche, not the group of 12 Roman deities. From its premiere to the present day, the suite has been enduringly popular, influential, and widely performed and recorded. The one that we're going to talk about today is called Mars. Now, there are a lot of elements of his music that John Williams was influenced by. things like bitonality and polytonality. But Holst's greatest influence on John Williams was in his orchestration technique. The Planets truly is one of the cornerstones of all modern orchestration, and for a developing orchestrator, his orchestrations are extremely difficult to comprehend. His use of expanded orchestra, for example, an expanded woodwind section. A typical woodwind section would have 16 players versus the usual 8. And in his string writing, he liked to employ unusual types of bowing techniques, such as collagno, where you strike the strings with the stick of the bow rather than drawing the hair of the bow across the strings. He would employ things like 2 harps. In the Planets, there are 2 harp parts. You'll hear people say that, oh, Star Wars was influenced by the Planets. Well, I want to talk about that and show you why people get that idea. I'm going to take a couple cues here, and I'm going to play them for you. The first one is from the Planets. You notice that ostinato pattern. Where does that sound like it's from? Well, here's Star Wars. This is a pattern in 5. That's called an ostinato. We've talked about that in some of the other videos where it's a repeated rhythmic figure. Many times on one note with a large section playing in unison. That'll have a melody over it too. Listen to it again. Now listen to Star Wars. It's uncannily similar. Now, instead of having that more linear line over it, he has a more articulated line with another rhythm that goes against that ostinato in Star Wars. But let's talk a little bit about what both these pieces are doing in this section. Okay, let's take the ostinato section from the Planets here and check it out. Okay, so you have this big ostinato basically on G. I don't have enough fast enough articulation. So that is played. Well, this counter melody goes over it. What's cool about that is that it starts on the tonic. So it goes G, so the ostinato's on G, and then the counter melody line starts in G, then to D, C sharp. So you have that tritone, which gives it a really ominous, the ostinato already makes it ominous, but it gives it that really ominous feel. Listen again. And you hear that timpani rolling right along with it in the same pattern, but against the... I really can't do it. That tritone is super powerful there. Okay, let's take a listen to Star Wars in the same area. Okay, so the ostinato already is on C. In the Holst, in the Planets, in Mars, it's on G, but this... Okay, so right there, we have a D flat major over C. Bitonal chord, essentially, a triad over a bass note. But there's a lot of this in Star Wars, in this particular piece. So, D flat over C, and then, and right there is E major over C, which is a C Lydian augmented chord, or a it's a bitonal chord. When I say bitonal, I mean a triad over bass note. And so that's just moving of triads. E, E flat, E, E flat, D flat. So John Williams does a lot of that in Star Wars, a lot of these major triads moving in a similar way. But notice the similarity between the ostinato patterns in the two pieces. It's really remarkable, really. Listen, this is Holst. Notice the timpani playing right along with the same rhythm. Listen. Exact same thing. When John was looking for inspiration for Star Wars, he, like every other composer, has his influences. And the orchestration and the ostinato patterns are so remarkably similar, it's impossible to think that there wasn't any influence here. Okay, let's take this next spot in the planets. Okay, right there we have a D-flat Lydian triad in second inversion. Okay, D-flat Lydian triad would be D-flat, G, A-flat, but it's A-flat, D-flat, G. And I hear in the timpani, we have C and G. The bass, the tubas are playing C. When the strings come in, they're playing C, they're playing C's, and the upper strings are playing this Lydian triad. But you hear this fifth in there. The timpanis are divided. There's two timpani parts. One is playing a C, one is playing a G, I believe. Yeah, I hear him. But it's a really great sound. Really powerful Lydian triad. If we take Star Wars here, we have exact same chord, essentially. I hear F in there as well. So it's a D-flat Lydian triad with an F in it. Over C. So both of these are over C. So you got D-flat Lydian major. We talked about Lydian major in one of the other episodes recently. D-flat Lydian major would be D-flat, F, G, A-flat. But his voice, I hear the F down a little bit lower. So John Williams added an F to his, but it's the same. Here is Holst. Here's John Williams. It's the same thing. It's the same voicing, and there it is. The next part I want to talk about is from the planets. Now that is a very familiar sound that you hear in John Williams as well. So what's going on here is you have planing between major chords, and they're going in a specific pattern. So you have a D, but you have a... You have a D in the bass, and you have an A flat major. So I'm going A flat, A, B major, C major, D major, E, F major, and that F major is really a D minor 7 chord there, but it's moving. So you get A flat to A, to B flat major to C major, D major, E major, F major, all over D. A similar idea is also used by John Williams later on in the theme. Listen. Okay, these are just simply major chords. G major to E major. G, then up to B flat, then to So that happens a lot in the Star Wars theme, is this movement of major triads like that. You notice a similarity between both the planets and John Williams' writing in a piece by Ray Vaughan Williams, who's also a British composer, called Fantasia on a Theme by Thomas Tallis, which was written in 1910. It's a piece for double string orchestra. So once again, it's an expanded orchestra, like Holst is using these expanded orchestras as well. I'm going to talk about that piece in the future. I want to show you how that you'll see John Williams' influences from that piece as well. But it's really beautiful string writing, a lot of triadic movement in the same way, and I'm sure that Holst was influenced by that piece since it predates the planets. So Vaughan Williams' piece was written in 1910, the planets in 1913, 1915, both being in the same place. I'm sure that that he was well aware of the piece. One of the cool things about these two pieces is that they're both available in score form. Obviously the Holst is, that's played all the time, but the John Williams pieces, unlike most film scores, are available in music where you can buy the scores. So you can actually do a comparative analysis between the two. A lot of the other film scoring people that I'm going to be talking about over the coming months, their scores are not readily available, so you actually have to go through the process of figuring them out and transcribing things or taking elements from them, which is what I'm doing here right as we're talking. Here's some other interesting voicings on the tag of the Star Wars theme. If I start from here, augmented chord, E flat augmented, I got E flat, G, B, E flat, G, and then he adds da 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 da, so he plays the augmented da 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 da, he adds the D to it. Now that voicing is kind of like a B altered chord without the when he adds a D to it. And then it resolves to C minor. It's really cool sound there. So you got this augmented triad, da 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 da, da da da. Resolves to C minor, and then the last chord. And that's a good old G major 7 chord. You got G. I have some doublings here in the sound, but it's a G major 7 chord. This is really fascinating to see the comparison between John Williams' Star Wars theme and the movement of the planets called Mars. You know, some of the exact same uses of the same material. And there are differences, but there are many, many similarities between the tunes. He was heavily influenced by that, you would have to say, from looking at them. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe here to my Everything Music YouTube channel. I'm Rick Beato.
Everything. Music.
Everything music, all of it.
Man, he's already up to 3.46 million subscribers. Let's get him to 4.
Yeah. Keep it going. Let's all go over there. Bum rush it.
Well, and you see why I love his channel. His music analysis is unparalleled.
Yeah, definitely.
I learned multiple new things just watching that, like the striking of the bow.
Yep. Yeah, and I like the movement of the chords and the fact that like just hearing, especially the way the very complex chords going on there when you've got triads moving over different bass notes and things like that. Definitely different than your standard, three chord arrangement that you hear in just standard rock songs, for example. So
Yeah, and
some good stuff there to work on.
I didn't know that Hulse used extended orchestras like that.
Hmm.
That explains a lot about some of those Planet tracks
Hmm.
because he had a lot of wind parts across the 7 different pieces.
Hmm.
Amazing wind work and brass work.
I haven't actually listened to as much classical or classically arranged type music where there's that many pieces involved. So I'll definitely have to hear some more orchestral music again. Now that my ear has improved so much over the years, it's been a while. Like I did go to an orchestra not too long ago with my mom and my nephew. It was probably a couple of years ago at this point, but I should do that again just to see what I'm like my new ear, let's call it, picks out
Yeah.
from having gotten more accustomed to just hearing different things in the mix, being able to just hear a full sound and be able to kind of razor in on where things are, even if it's not all separated out, just by
Oh,
focusing on kind of that range.
and to hear acoustic instruments arranged in an orchestral pit the way they are,
Hmm.
that's an experience for a musician.
Yeah, yeah, and good seats help too. Good seats as far as being in a spot where you can hear everything clearly.
Yeah, that was a gem as
Yeah,
far as the Fourth of July
May the
or
fourth, May the
4th of
fourth,
May.
May the fourth be with you.
That is a great analysis.
Yeah, I like it. And again, Beato's always got some good stuff there. Sometimes it's whether it's opining about the music business or struggles he's had with things being copywritten. Like I noticed there, like it's chopped into small pieces, so hopefully he doesn't have any issues with that, and he's able to keep that going like that because again, it's very small pieces, and we're just talking about the song. We're not trying to get away with playing the whole song. We're just trying to play the song
Oh,
to
it's
illustrate the parts and learn up from it is the idea.
yeah, it's for educational purposes, and
Exactly.
you kind of can't learn music unless you have examples.
Yep. And it's important to have good examples, and these are good examples of types of chords. You can hear the sounds, you can hear how complex it is, and you can find out why. And that's why the breaking it down, like how many times do you play E Lydian altered or what have you? Like you're not playing these normally in your normal everyday progressions that if you're just learning and just doing your same little scales all the time. So it's good to get outside that box by listening to something like this and an excellent breakdown like that.
Oh, and I got to find out what sampler he's using because he had great samples. That
Oh yeah, I
it's
noticed
a
that
it's a
too.
it's a trip to see him on the keyboard. I'm so used to like the guitar and his guitar videos that
Mhm.
when I see him on the keyboard, I'm like, oh my god, he
Yeah,
can play it all.
he does that too. Yeah, absolutely. And like the sound he had, it didn't have a strong upfront presence, and that's why he was having trouble trying to like trying to get very
Yeah,
fast,
yeah,
hit the
and
beat. Couldn't do it on that sound.
that particular bounce, especially with I mean, it's even harder with the weighted keys,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
even with the plastic keys, I did Mars, and that bounce,
Mhm.
trying to get it natural takes a couple of tries.
Yeah, natural and repeatable. Like you need to make it natural. Bouncing through every one of those measures where you're doing that bounce. So it's important. And that's the other thing is sometimes it's oh yeah I know what the notes are and it's easy to get there, but to be able to play that consistently, measure after measure, that the way it needs to be played, that's important.
Yeah, and while you're doing that bounce, like with your
Yeah,
left hand, your right hand is playing a totally different phrasing.
off time melody. Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Off time from
And,
the other hand.
and that actually leads us to the other video that I was as I was looking at this one, I started wondering like, we covered doing love songs and how to write a love song last
The
week, and
love song.
one that in the future, this is a good starting video, but in the future, I would like to cover writing cinematic scores.
Nice.
This is something that I think a lot of musicians out there would like to get more involved in. And these days, there's more media being made now that you got streaming Hulu and Netflix. They're always looking for, you know, original scores to go
Mhm.
with their content. So this is a side of music where there is work.
Not only that, but this is also a place to investigate AI music and AI for cinematic, as another step in that process. Like that's, great to be able to do it ourselves and also great to see what because that genre especially, like you're watching a movie, and what kind of music should it be? Like, you want that building of intensity, or should it just be kind of mellow or whatever? Like, it all has to fit with the storyline of what's going on. So it's kind of a guided journey. Even if it was AI, it would be one of those things where you would be telling an AI, okay, at this point, dramatic, this, like giving it all descriptions about the scene and what it should sound like, and then shifting to something else suddenly, or because right at the point where this happens, kind of going into the director mode on that.
Yeah, and when you're composing a score like that, I really do think, I mean, AI will definitely help there, but I think it does take a human to kind of go
Yeah,
through the film and add that layer of emotion, ambiance that goes behind the visuals.
absolutely.
I think that's a big key there.
Yeah, that's what makes a big difference.
And that's what got me interested in this channel. I mean, this is the Composing Academy. Like,
Nice.
they couldn't have called themselves a better name for me. I was like, yeah.
You're like, sold, I'll take 2.
Yeah, and we can find them at was that 8270? So at Composing Academy 8270 over on YouTube. They've got tips for composing all over. Oh, Christmas music. We'll have to revisit that one at the end of the year.
Absolutely.
But this one is on how to write cinematic music in 7 easy steps.
All right.
And they managed to cut it down to 12 minutes. When I was looking for videos covering this, everything was like hour,
Yeah.
2 hours, 3 hours.
Well,
Like,
it's it can be a deep subject for sure.
yeah, and in some cases they're like composing the whole film score in the video, so it's worth a search out there if you're interested in doing cinematic scores.
Absolutely.
So we're going to take a look at how to write cinematic music in 7 easy steps.
In this video, I'll show you how to write some cinematic music from scratch in 7 easy steps, just like this. Also, be sure to check out my free beginner's guide to writing cinematic music ebook, a link of which is in the description below. I've decided to write in the key of C minor, so I'm going to begin by listing all of the chords that are found in the key of C minor. Next, I'm going to pick 4 of these chords from the list to begin with. I'm going to choose C minor, A flat major, B flat major, and A flat major for the first 4 bars. As we want our piece to take the listener on an emotional journey, I'm going to start the piece with a delicate feel, which will give it room to grow and expand as the piece progresses. I'm going to start by playing the chords on the piano, using an open voicing like this to create the cinematic feel. To help set the emotional tone from the beginning, I've also used this low boom sound, a reverse piano pattern, and a low drone underneath, which helps to fill out the texture. Next, I'm going to extend this opening to an 8-bar chord progression, choosing a slightly different order of chords for the second lot of 4 bars. Let's introduce a new element to start progressing the music along. For the next section, have a go at bringing in some long sustained strings underneath the piano, playing chords. I've changed the chord progression in these next 8 bars slightly to help add some variation, but you can use the same chords as your previous 8 bars if you wish. Notice that I've carried the reverse piano pattern over to help give some continuity between the first and second sections. I've also layered the string sounds from a couple of libraries together to achieve a thicker sound. These long strings from Omnisphere and the strings ensemble patch from Cinematic Studio Strings. To start ramping up the emotional intensity of the piece, let's add some movement to the next section. Using ostinatos, or repeating patterns played by short spiccato strings, is an easy way to achieve this. Begin by copying the chord progression you had in the previous 8 bars, along with the long strings and piano part. Remember, if you want to add some variation, try changing one of the chords like I've done here. Once you've got your chords, start by experimenting with a short pattern which only uses the notes found in each chord for each bar's ostinato. So here in bar 17, I'm using the notes of E flat, G, C and G, which are all found in the chord of C minor. When the harmony changes to the A flat major chord, keep the same shape or pattern of notes, but change the actual pitches so that you include an A flat, C and E flat. If you want some different examples of ostinatos, check out my video 8 Cinematic Ostinatos. Now let's write a melody for the piece. I think I want to start the melody at the same time as the spiccato strings come in. Start by coming up with a 2-bar motif. This will be the building block of your 8-bar melody. Try to begin using the notes which are found in each chord as a starting point. You can then add additional notes, filling in the gaps to connect your notes together. Moving by step, or using consecutive notes which are next to each other, is a great way to compose a strong melody. Once you have your first 2 bars, try to copy the rhythm for your next 2 bars, but changing the actual notes used. By copying elements such as the rhythm, you're giving your melody continuity, while still developing the music as it progresses. For the second half of the 8-bar melody, you could try using the same rhythm from the first 2 bars, although it's okay to modify this a little if you feel it needs the variation. Try to also think about the shape or contour of your overall melody as well. Having the highest note in the second half of the 8-bar melody will help to give your tune an emotional arc. Once you've got your melody, experiment with the orchestration of it. The violins are a great starting point, and you can see here I've given the melody to the violins and the piano in these 8 bars. To give some extra weight to the violins, I've layered them using a total of 3 different sample libraries: Spitfire's Albion 1, the legato violins from their chamber strings, and the violins from Metropolis Arc 1 by Orchestral Tools. Other instruments which work well for emotional melodies in cinematic music include the French horns, trumpets, and cellos. Now you've got your 8-bar melody, have a go at repeating it to form the next section, but with some extra development in the form of a counter melody. Counter melodies can be great at helping to propel the music forward, and they also help to give an extra layer of emotion to the music. Here you can see I've written a counter melody in the French horns. When writing your counter melody, try to keep it independent from the main tune, having it play at points where the main melody either has sustained notes or even rests. As these 8 bars will be the climax of the piece, I want to add some extra detail in the orchestration to help give some more emotional impact. An effective way of achieving this is to double the melody on additional instruments, such as here where I now have the violins and cellos playing the melody in unison. During the second half of the section, to ramp up even more, I also had the violins and piano playing in octaves, giving a wider range to the notes. I've also added a pulsing bass synth part playing in the background, which helps to give it an extra push in the bottom end as well. Having an effective structure is a vital element of a good piece, and a trick I often use is to end the piece in the same way that it began. Here I've copied over the first 8 bars from the piano at the beginning and tagged it on to the end. After the loud crescendo, which has just come before, returning to the familiar calmer mood from the beginning helps to end the piece, making it feel more final. Let's take a listen to the whole track from beginning to end.
Yeah, that one doesn't need a whole lot of saying after that. That's just beautiful. It was really relaxing. I just love the compositions, and I'm going to start looking into doing some compositions that way myself. And the way I ordinarily orchestrate things, I usually do more just, bass, keys, guitar, and go from there. I don't normally do an entire orchestral production, but I should look into that more because I definitely always have found that very soothing. And I think now I understand enough about the way chords are put together to kind of get that all happening. So I'm gonna have to look into that some more. But one thing I did want to talk about next was the difference between using USB mics versus XLR mics and which ones sound good enough for recording vocals. So I just want to jump right into that real quick. USB versus XLR microphones and see which works best for you.
This is a USB microphone, used by most for streaming and online video recording purposes. But when it comes to recording vocals, how good are USB microphones really? Today I'm going to test the brand new Audio-Technica AT2020X USB microphone and compare it to the best-selling XLR microphone of all time. Let's go. So before we get things started, the first thing we need to do is discuss the differences between USB and XLR microphones. USB microphones are very affordable, they're quick to set up, they sound good, and they don't require an audio interface to function. On the downside, USB mics often have more latency, you can only record with one at a time, and the sound quality is above average compared to an XLR mic. But things have improved a lot over the years. Speaking of XLR mics, in most cases you will need an external audio interface, which will cost you extra dollars, but the sound quality is a lot more detailed. You have less latency and you can record multiple microphones at the same time. So both have their pros and cons, and at the end of the day it all depends on what you need for what you do. I know Alex Iono used the AT2020 Plus USB microphone to record his covers, and I think it worked just fine. By the way, huge shout out to Sweetwater for sending me these microphones to make this video possible. As always, if you're interested in any of these, links will be down in the description below. Now, to get things started, let's have a look at these two microphones. When you open the box, the AT2020X comes with a desk stand that does feel pretty sturdy. You also get a USB-A cable with a USB-C adapter. In the XLR box, we get a stand connector and a nice carry pouch. You do need to buy a microphone stand and an XLR cable if you want to go for the AT2020, so keep in mind those are additional costs. And then comparing the mics themselves, the USB AT2020X includes a mix control wheel, headphone input with adjustable volume and glowing mute button. The XLR AT2020 offers no features, but Billie Eilish did use this microphone on Ocean Eyes. So yeah, no features needed. The only way to really see which microphone is best for you is by doing a sound quality test. Your mouth is a roof over, flying bullets in the sky. Your love is like a soldier, loyal till you die. I've been looking at the stars for a long, long time. I've been putting out fires all my life. Everybody wants a flame, they don't wanna get burned. Well, 2 days I'll turn. Days like this lead to nights like this, lead to love like ours. You light the spark in our bonfire. People like us, we don't need that much. Just someone that starts the spark in our bonfire. So for me, both microphones have their purpose. The AT2020X is great for streaming, podcasting, video audio recording, and for vocals, it's pretty decent. But if I'm focusing on the long term, the AT2020 XLR just offers a crispier, more detailed sound. There is quite a price gap between these two, but whichever microphone you choose, you won't be making a mistake.
That I expected he was gonna give that advice between USB versus XLR. And yeah, the USB is definitely more catered towards the podcasters, and nice easy mic to plug directly.
And that is one of the big differences, is the directly plugging in versus having an interface. Like if you already have an interface, a mixer, a board, any kind of way of getting an XLR signal into a machine, that actually gives you that as an advantage to, that's why the XLR one might not be why, but that the XLR is cheaper because you already have the interface or the board to plug into. where the USB is okay. I just need to be able to get a microphone into the PC, and I don't have an interface to do it. Then the USB mic is just direct, nice, simple solution.
Yeah, the XLR will give you versatility. You don't need a computer to use it, but you do need a you need a mic preamp and a mixer at that
Yep.
point.
Exactly. And so it does come down to, again, what you have on hand already. If you're just getting into it and you have nothing, and you don't have a way of getting sound into your computer, then for them, absolutely, the USB mic makes sense. Same for podcasting, like you mentioned, and other things
Oh,
where you're not really doing any kind of music stuff, just getting the sound in.
and you could hear the difference between the XLR. It was a
Mhm.
lot fuller, better dynamics.
Hmm. In some
That
cases, I noticed
that
that
was a good comparison.
it was a good comparison, but I did notice that the testing conditions, like, in some cases, like the two mics, like from one mic, from mic A to mic B, they were exactly in the same position, but then to mic C, it was a little bit further, and he was a little further from the, and it could have just been the way he was singing that part of the song, like it's a little louder, so he's backing off a little further.
Yeah.
But to me, like, certain parts of the test, you can definitely hear the difference, but in some cases, you have to also just watch carefully to see that the equipment is in the same place, because you might sound a lot different because he's further and it's further. So that could be making a difference as well. But no, good test overall, and definitely one thing is that I don't always see it as one being empirically better than the other. To me, it's just different flavors of sound. So like I can't say that this one sounds better, this one sounds worse, unless there's like tinniness or a lack of fullness, things like that. Those kinds of things can make a big difference. But in those,
And
they all
and if I was going to recommend either one, because we get people asking
yeah.
this kind of stuff all the time. That's why I picked this one.
Mhm.
It really would depend on their needs. That's where you got to ask the person who's wondering, what do you plan on doing with it? Is somebody who says that they're really getting this to sing, I'm going to go with the XLR.
Mhm.
But if they're looking to sing online, through Zoom or through the computer, then the USB is worth considering.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, if somebody is going to be singing in the XLR, I mean that is a mic that you could bring with you to somewhere to to sing, and you just need a cable, and you can actually plug in. Whereas a USB mic is going to do you no good outside of the house.
Nope, you're not bringing a USB mic to an open mic jam.
So, where am I plugging this? You're like back at home. But they usually would have a mic for you, so that you don't have to have one there. But some people do prefer using their own mics or having their own mic on hand. I generally don't sing when I do open jams. I'm usually there to play bass, but they will put a mic in front of me a lot of times to sing backgrounds
Oh,
as I start getting ready to.
everybody wants to hear you sing. They'll keep
Yeah,
shoving that mic in front of your face till you do.
yeah. There've been a couple. There've been a couple. Some of the songs I'm more comfortable than others in order to it has to do with the timing of the bass part I'm trying to play and the timing of the line I'm trying to sing and how much they are either aligned musically or against each other musically, because sometimes you're trying to sing something that doesn't make sense at all to the bass line, or you're trying to do a bass fill while you're trying to sing something totally unrelated, and that makes it very difficult. But if it's something, especially something like ZZ Top, for example, I'm going to start trying to sing some ZZ Top songs, like sing lead vocals on those, because I got that nice deep voice for the ZZ Top stuff, and the bass parts are so simple, where you're just thumping on one note and just keeping that timing, rolling along.
Oh, you're gonna be a sharp dress man.
I'll do Sharp Dressed Man, I'll do Cheap Sunglasses, I'll do all that stuff.
Legs.
So many good ones. Legs is
She
another good
got
one.
legs.
I was thinking about Tube Snake Boogie, another good one. I mean, there's so many to choose from. And it's like as I'm driving in the car, and when I do actually turn the radio on instead of listening to CDs, which I have a bad habit of listening to the same CD over and over. But when I do actually listen to the radio, and some of these songs come on, I'm like, oh, we should do that one. Oh, we should do that one. Oh, we should do that one. It's all the songs that are coming on. I'm like, we should definitely start doing those.
Well, it's not a bad habit if it's a good CD.
Oh yeah, what's a good CD? The Grateful Dead. There's some really good jams on this one.
Yep, so that was a good video,
Yes.
good new channel, Edward Smith at Edward Smith Music.
Hmm.
And again, look, I mean, reviews up the yang.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
these are the channels that I love, man. When they're covering like equipment and different audio interfaces, these are the YouTube resources you want to go find.
Exactly.
Look at
A lot
all
of
this.
times it's the entrance to certain rabbit holes where once you go into one of those videos, whether it's your recommendations from there or whether it's the suggestions on the side, when you go into a particular video, you'll just start finding more videos about the subject that you're looking for, and it can be very, very informative.
Yeah, and I actually found this one because while I was looking for videos on, building your own home studio on the
Right, right.
cheap,
Hmm.
and like this kept popping up on the side, and I was like, okay,
You sold me.
I,
Yep.
I guess I gotta check this out.
Yep, yep. Now the microphone that you hear me talking through, actually, this one is a Pro line, I believe. Yeah, Pro line. It's got a switch on it, but this one actually came free with a mic stand. So this is not anything that was extra special. It wasn't super expensive or anything like that. It was just a this one here was just a cheap thing that came with a mic stand. Now I do have a couple of Shure SM48s that we are
Oh,
that we use all the time for live people singing live. So if I do recording of my voice, I would probably break one of those out and snap it on here. But I keep those in the bag because I usually use two of those when we go out to gigs.
oh, and you can't have enough SMs. Like they're so versatile and useful, and they don't break easy.
No, I mean they are super strong, just rock solid. But I've had those for a couple of years, and or I mean they've been in the family. We've had a couple of them around. Mike has the 57s by him. They're like the cigar, or thinner style mics. I have the ones that are more like the ice cream cones, like this one. Um, but the 48s and the 58s are very similar. So the 48s are the ones that I have, and they're not that expensive. But it comes down to, again, what you're planning on doing with something. Like if you're planning on just doing, this is just just talking and things like that. I mean, this mic is perfectly good, and it was again essentially free with a mic stand when I got it. So it was and the mic stand was only $30 or whatever. So
Can't beat that price.
okay, I'm sold. I mean, I know I already had two SM48s at home, but I'm like, okay, that makes sense. I was there for a mic stand anyway, and I'm like, I was
Oh
about to buy a mic
yeah,
stand for 20 something, and I'm like, okay, so for $5 or $10 more, I get a different mic stand, but and a microphone. I'm like, okay,
yeah. If
I'll
they
take
want
that.
to throw mics in while I'm buying other shit, sure.
Yeah.
I will find a purpose for that mic.
And again, it came down to also that at the house here, I already have the board, my little Mackie board, the 402. So it's a little 4-channel Mackie, so it's nothing special, but it's got the two
No,
preamp channels, so I can plug in two XLRs if I want to right there, and it's
Mackie
got the
mic.
solid preamps.
Yeah, Mackie mic preamps are one of they. That's why I bought my Mackie. Actually, I needed a good mic preamp, and
Yeah. But the this mic that does this for my voice is the one just this cheesy little mic here, or it came with something, and my Mackie that I had for a while, but it's a small Mackie, and it's not a newer one that has the USB interface, so it's all just coming into my computer through the 1/8 inch microphone line in.
yeah, when I was shopping around, actually that'll lead us into our next video,
Yeah.
because she is the one who helped me. I was debating between a USB mixer
Hmm.
versus a dedicated audio interface. The focus
Hmm.
rights at the
Yep.
time. I was recommending those focus rights left and right to
Yep.
singers, and I was like, I could use one, but
Yep.
I also needed to solve, I got to run my keyboards through it. I've wanted to be able to run different things from the room into the mic and still go USB into the computer. And in the end, after watching her advice on the differences between an audio interface and a USB mixer, I went with the Mackie mixer because
Hmm.
it solved more
Yeah.
of what I need. I
And I
would have
mean,
eventually had to get a mixer anyway, even if I had gone with the audio interface.
yeah, and I have to say it's been rock solid. I mean, I've had the thing for over a decade now. I mean, it's been part of my setup here because we've talked about the fact that I wear headphones like all the time. Like when I'm home, if I said I wear these 18 hours a day, it's not necessarily an exaggeration.
No, I thought you just looked like that.
They're just like they just grew there, and there's just a wire, they're kind of tethering me somewhere.
Well,
Because I always preferred them.
you're like the male Princess Leia.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah. What? But yeah, I got the crescents on the ears. But in this case, it's like it always has been, running to that Mackie. So it was like the output from the Mackie was going to the headphones, and I was just taking everything from my TV. So I'd be watching TV, and I'd be playing video games, and I'd have musical instruments, and they're all going into that Mackie, and then coming into the computer as one input. And I could also have it come from like the PlayStation was going to the TV, and then coming from the TV to the Mackie as another input. So I could just, with the same headphones on, I could just switch back and forth or mix all the volumes between all the devices in the house.
That's
and keep it all in
been
headphones.
that's been my dream. One headphone to rule them all.
And that's what I chose. Is I set it up that way. And at one point, I even had one of those extensions, like a 25-foot extension, so I could even be like lying down in the bedroom over there with the headphones still on, just listening to whatever. Because these don't quite get me there. Like I can almost go lie down, like just wearing these the way they're plugged in. But I feel like it puts too much stress on the
Oh,
connector on the top.
I use a 20-foot extender on my music machine
Yeah.
just so I can. When I didn't use it, once in a while I'd get up and forget that my headphones were on, and I
That's
ripped
one of the
them
reasons
out
I don't go
enough
wireless.
times.
I've never gone wireless for the headphones. I've always had wired headphones. So I've just always been accustomed to when I get up, like, managing my leash is part of it. But, just never getting used to the not having them. I've never had to actually trip over them while walking away. But I have, all stretched them to the point where I lose stereo at one point, and I was like, okay, that's
Yeah.
really too much stress. So now, and then with those extensions, I always wind up rolling over them with an office chair, and I am a big guy. So if I roll over stuff with an office chair, it doesn't cut the cable, it doesn't crimp the cable, but you will start developing issues where all of a sudden you start losing one ear or the other, or the cable rolls a certain way and the sound all of a sudden is having a problem. So I got to watch that with
See,
with
you know
rolling
what
over stuff.
what I did with my 20-foot. I got one of those cable
Cable management, yeah.
yeah, and it rolls into it. So like, you
Like
remember
the
the old
retractable
days?
power cords, yeah.
Yeah, like the old vacuum cleaners
Vacuum
where
cleaner, yeah.
you'd pull out the cord and do your thing, and then and it would just suck it right back in.
Yeah, the other thing I would call would be the tape measure. Would be the other one with the automatic zip, coil right back in.
Yep, that's how I solved it. And I don't have the cable hanging all over the room so I can step on it.
And with this image here, like we did talk about the stereo or the monitors and having them at ear height. That's important. Like if people are looking, to get monitors for their setup in there, like me again, I'm always in the headphones here, so I don't even have monitors that I would say are useful for mixing sound. But having monitors like that in a studio where you can mix, having them placed at an appropriate height so you are
Oh
getting them
yeah,
at your ears is important.
and I love those desktop monitors.
Yep.
I have a pair over here. I don't
Mhm.
get to use them anymore, but if
But
I could get them set up and get like a quiet weekend where nobody's in the house,
mhm.
I would crank them up. It's nice when I would actually mix with those
Yeah.
if I could make the noise.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, having them so that you have that option, because there will come that opportunity, somebody someday they're outside, out in the backyard playing whatever. Like if there's nobody in the house, then you
Yeah,
can just,
well,
break up and do that. But
if I actually worked during the day, then I wouldn't worry about waking them up.
yeah, exactly.
But I do
The
all
days
my
for
music
sleeping.
at night.
Yeah, I hear you on
I wear my sunglasses at night.
that. So I can.
So this next video, we're going to look at the difference between an audio interface versus a mixer. And this channel, love it. Been going to it since I bought that mixer because it was such good advice.
Mhm.
And again, one of those channels where they cover so many good topics
Yeah.
that you're going to find something in here that relates to your music making. Look, zoom in music mode.
There you
Like
go. Nice.
we're going to have to check that one out,
Yeah.
eventually, because we deal with zoom in music mode.
And there's Mr. Jacobs with some "May the Fourth be with you," and Chewy.
Oh, you make a good Chewbacca.
Imagine that.
Well, you got the right. You're the right size.
and they do call me Bigfoot in my one band, so
We
I do
just
constantly get jokes about that.
we got to glue hair all over you.
Yeah, I was thinking of getting one of the actually over out in Pennsylvania at one of the studios. They have one bush outside that really just looks like 10-foot diameter pot bush, but with tiny little leaves. But I know it's not. It's not, but it's just the leaves are like very, very thin and have that look. Like it looks like you could build a ghillie suit out of this bush, but you could build like 15 ghillie suits out of this bush. So every time I go by, I was like, somebody hiding in there. It looks crazy. But they do have that out there, and they're always talking about the me being Bigfoot and the woods being right there. I'm always going out. I feel drawn to the woods. I do like the woods.
A good place to go to jam if you got the acoustics.
Absolutely. And we'll check out what the studio looks like here. She looks like she has one of the controllers there. Is that one of the
Oh yeah. She's got a couple things in the back that are familiar with me. I think that's the Novation
Yeah,
over on the left.
I like it.
And another Mac user. Curse you all, you Mac heads.
I can't fault them for using Mac for
Eh,
music.
I won't hold it against her, especially
Right.
seeing what Jake's doing with his
Mhm.
Mac. He's one who can convince me that there is a benefit to making music on the Mac side.
Yeah, done right, it can work out very well.
Yeah, and it made it a lot easier for him when it came to calibrating his mic and his guitar and getting them both in there nice sounding.
Mhm.
He did it like that.
Nice.
So
Good stuff.
this is Music Repo at Music Repo on YouTube. Again, fantastic channel, answers a lot of different questions. And tonight we're going to answer audio interface versus mixer.
Nice.
Hello and welcome back. In this video, I am going to look at the key differences between an audio interface and a mixer. Which one is right for your home recording studio? If you're confused about standalone mixing consoles, USB mixers and USB audio interfaces in general, then hopefully this will help you out. You are not alone with your confusion. If you want to know more after watching this, then do post your comments below. I do read them all and it helps me decide what content to produce to help you out next. I post regular videos and blog posts on home recording studio tips and tricks, especially aimed at beginners. If that sounds like you, then do subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell if you want to be the first to get my latest home studio tutorials. And please give the video a quick thumbs up if you find it helpful. Right, so let's crack on with the difference between an audio interface and a mixer. I will cover the absolute basics here. Then if you want to know more, I have written a detailed accompanying article on my website, which I'll link to right now and which you might also find helpful. So let's start with the standalone audio interface. Now these come in many shapes, sizes and formats, from a simple 2-channel interface for iPad up to multi-channel beasts that allow you to record multiple audio sources. This Focusrite 4i4 is fairly typical, so let's have a look in detail. The key purpose of an audio interface is to allow you to make high quality recordings on your computer or mobile device. This one has 4 audio inputs. The 2 on the front are multi-format, so you can plug in microphones or instruments like guitar or electric violin, or line level sources like a keyboard. You see these inputs have separate gain controls, so you can adjust the level of the signal you're recording, as these 2 inputs have built-in preamps. Now on the rear there are 2 additional line level inputs. These don't have any gain adjustment on the interface, they're at a fixed level. Now apart from that, there is very little else on this interface. You can control the volume of the output for the headphones and speakers. There's a phantom power switch if you're plugging in condenser mics. This audio interface is ideal for recording clean signals into your recording software, and then you can add reverb, delay, compression and other effects within the software and create your final mix. There is no effects processing at all on the interface. The only thing you can really adjust is the recording level where that's available. Now another key thing you should note about this typical audio interface is you can record each input on a separate track within your DAW simultaneously. So if you want your vocal on one track, guitar on another, and maybe a keyboard on another track, you can easily do this. All you need to do is create tracks in your recording software, arm them for recording, choose the inputs, then start recording and play. Each track will capture the individual audio source from the input you have chosen. Now with this interface you can record 4 things at the same time on separate tracks. On an interface like the Scarlett 18i20, you can get 18 inputs and 20 outputs in your DAW. So you've got mega multi-track recording capability, and that is what an audio interface is really good for. Now let's take a look at the standalone mixing console. So this Yamaha MG06 is about as simple as you can get. Here you can connect up to 4 separate audio sources, 2 mic or line inputs with gain and then 2 additional sets of line inputs, either mono or stereo, again each with their separate gain control. Now even on this simple mixing console, you have the opportunity to adjust the level of the high and low frequencies on the first 2 channels, so it's got very simple EQ. You can also get an effects version of this mixing console that has built-in effects, so you can also add reverb or delay. Move up to the big brother Yamaha MG10 and you'll see there are more channels, and you now have the ability to add compression, more complex EQ, panning, etc., all on the mixing console. So what all these mixers have in common is that the output of the mixer is stereo. It is a stereo mix of your audio sources, your mics, your instruments, etc., all combined with all those settings already applied. And that is the key purpose of these kinds of standalone mixers. You can combine different sound sources, adjust the levels, adjust the signal, add effects, adjust the EQ, then output the final result as one stereo stream. These particular mixers are not USB mixers, so they do not connect directly to your computer or mobile device in any way. They have no built-in interface. So to record on your computer, you have to combine them with an audio interface. That's quite simple. You just take the left and right outputs from the mixer, connect them to the left and right line inputs on your audio interface. Then you can record the output of the mixer in your recording software. However, you will be recording the stereo mix on one stereo track. You will not be able to capture each instrument on a separate track at the same time. If you want to record instruments separately, you will have to play them one at a time and record them one after the other to get the separate sounds and then mix them after. It is possible to combine the audio interface and the standalone mixing console in one unit because many mixers you can buy are in fact USB mixers. So for example, the Behringer X1204 USB. Now this mixer has lots of inputs for various audio sources. You can connect mics, line level sources and so on. It has built-in effects, it's got EQ and panning, and this Behringer mixer can operate as a standalone mixer too. Do beware that not all USB mixers work as standalone mixers, so if that's important to you, make sure that you look for that feature. But this Behringer mixer also has the benefit of incorporating a built-in USB audio interface, and this is where you need to be careful, because yes, you can connect it directly to your computer via USB, and you can record the output of the mixer in your recording software without any other equipment, or you could stream it live if you wanted to do live streams, but you can only record or stream the stereo mix. You cannot separate each audio source onto different tracks in your DAW and record at the same time with this USB mixer. Another difference to remember is you will not just be recording the pure signals from your audio sources, but the signals will already have had EQ and effects applied. So much of the work you do with your USB mixer will be in adjusting the signal path on the actual mixer using the hardware controls, then recording or streaming the stereo output. So it's great for a live stream. It's a different workflow, and we'll have a look in a minute at which approach might be best for you. With the audio interface, you record your audio signals on separate tracks, then process and mix the sounds in software. With the USB mixer we just looked at, you set up the levels, effects, EQ, panning, then record the result as a stereo file. But for completeness, let's compare what we've looked at so far with something like the Soundcraft Signature 12 MTK USB interface mixer. Now, if you look at the blurb on the box of that one, it says, "This is a high-performance 12-input mixer with onboard effects and multi-track USB recording and playback with a 14-in, 12-out, ultra-low latency USB playback and recording interface." In other simpler words, you have all the benefits of the mixing console. You've got the effects and signal processing and the ability to connect and mix multiple instruments and sound sources, plus you have the benefits of the multi-channel audio interface in that you can record each sound source on a separate track in your DAW at the same time. However, this does come at a price. So Audio interface, mixer, USB mixer, which is the right device for you? This is going to depend really on two main things. Your budget, obviously, and what you most want to achieve in your recording studio. If you want to make high quality recordings on your computer or mobile device and then refine them in your DAW, maybe for a podcast, YouTube voiceover, making simple high quality recordings of your instruments, then an audio interface will be ideal. If you're more interested in live performance and live streaming, then the USB mixer might be a better option. This will allow you to get all your signals set up and adjust all the sounds and mix them, and then simply stream the stereo output to Facebook Live, YouTube Live, wherever else you want to perform. And you should also be able to use the mixer as a standalone device too for live work away from your computer or mobile device. But as I said earlier, be careful because there are some that are USB only and you have to run them through a computer. Now, another option is a crossover solution like mine, where you mainly use an audio interface, but when you want to record and mix additional audio sources, you can use a standalone mixing console like my little Yamaha that you then output to your audio interface. This does mean you have to have two separate devices. I find it's quite flexible. It's how you want to work. And finally, the multi-channel mixer with built-in interface is obviously going to give you the best of all worlds. You can use it to create a stereo mix for live streaming and also use it as a multi-channel interface to record your separate audio tracks. However, two problems with this approach are budget, because these mixers are not cheap, they're not an entry-level price, and also they're big. So it might be that if you want more portability, then they're not appropriate for you, or maybe you haven't got much room in your home studio. The beauty of an audio interface is it's usually smaller and more portable, although if you buy one of the big 18-channel beasts, that's not going to be the case. Well, this has been a very quick look at the differences between audio interfaces and mixers. If you want more details, then do follow the link in the description to my more in-depth article. And if you have any comments or questions, please post them below. I love to read them. If you've enjoyed the video and found it helpful, do give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you want more of my home recording studio tips and tricks. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
Oh, and she does go more in depth with some of the other videos. Musicrepo.com, or you can find them over at Musicrepo on YouTube.
Yeah.
Another valuable resource.
Yeah, excellent. And my only thing would have been the part talking about the going from the mixer over to the interface.
Oh,
is
the
if you
hybrid
were to-
solution?
Yeah, I would hard pan, like if it was trying to get a voice and an instrument, for example. I would just have, the voice and hard pan it left and the instrument and hard pan it right, and that way the outputs you're sending would be able to give you essentially, this recording the voice and this recording the guitar.
Yeah, and you're essentially getting two mono signals.
Exactly. And because these are mono signals to start with, essentially instrument cables and microphones like this, you're usually dealing with a mono signal at the start anyway. So for me, I like doing that. Tascam 424, nice.
Yeah. Oh, and they showed you saw that focus right at the end. That's Jake's. That's the big dog.
Yep. And Jason was saying that he had both of the ones that she held up, and the one that she held up that was the Yamaha, the small one, is almost exactly what my Mackie is as far as all the inputs, outputs, like it's all essentially the same thing. She did mention at one point that there was one model that had the effects built in. I hadn't seen that one, but the one I have is a little bit older, so it doesn't have the USB, the newer USB interface. It's again, that's why I use it as the main outs or the headphones out going to my computer, just line input.
Yeah, and if Jason has it, it's cool.
Exactly. And I mean, the other thing is that, we work with all kinds of, whether it's the gear that's the entry level gear, that's, just a small solution for what you're doing in the house, up to, people doing really massive things on stage and in studios. We've got exposure to all of those things. Like I work with the Persona Studio 32 out in Pennsylvania. Mike and I use the 24 when we go out and do gigs there. Sometimes with the bigger interfaces, it does seem like the rack mount solutions or the ones that are designed to be a rack mount solution are nice, because then it's just a whole bay of inputs. And
And it's nicer. It's nicer when you're having to set up and deal with stage and.
Yep.
Big mixing console is awesome, but like it's not always the best when you're out by that stage. Sometimes the rack mounts better approach, much more safer too.
And in some of the places we go, the venue has their own setup, and we can just plug in directly to there. Now, normally we would bring our own because essentially the gear that we have would probably be better what they had in the venue anyway. But the when it comes down to if they have something and it's already in place and they already have the speakers wired and everything, it can save us a lot of steps to just basically send have Mike wire everything to his board and then just take the main outs, send that to their setup, and just go push out from there. So we've been known to do that, but usually we set up everything ourselves, and depends if there's space and depends on how good the venue is as far as their equipment goes.
Yeah, and one other thing she mentioned that really helped me as I was shopping, like I almost went with that Yamaha that she was showing.
Yeah.
What ended up convincing me for the Mackie, because Mackie and Yamaha, when it comes to their 10 and 12 channel mixers, their USB ones,
Mhm.
they're very close, very competitive in price. They're almost identical in price. The one thing the Mackie had the advantage of, a control room button that allowed me to go from the live mix to the digital mix, and I can basically turn between them if I need to. And with the Mackie, it had 2 additional outs. The Yamaha only has 1 stereo out. The Mackie has an additional channel 3 and 4. So if I wanted to route different audio, I actually do have 2 stereo outputs that I can record simultaneously.
Nice.
So it was almost like getting a multi-channel mixer, because that was my decision at that time. I really wanted a multi-channel mixer like those Soundcrafts or the Zoom mixer. You can record each individual channel into Cakewalk independently, and
Yep.
a multi-channel mixer is the dream, but you start to get over the $300 mark at that point.
Yeah, the one we use over in at Joey's house is the Tascam that we've talked about, where
Yeah,
it's
that's a
got
good one.
the 8 XLRs in the front and then an additional, I think, 8 quarter-inch in the back, and 2 of them are in the front. But basically, you get up to 16 for there, or it
Yeah,
might even be
and
considered a 24 because I think all those quarter-inch are considered like a 9, 10, 11, 12 kind of thing.
yeah, and if your budget can't get you to the multi-channel mixers, like she mentioned, it just means that you're going to have to lay down a track, then lay down your next track, then lay down your next track. You just have to do it, sequentially.
And that is the other question. Like for me, whether it's the Yamaha or the Mackie, I use the Mackie 4-channel, but it's the same size as that Yamaha she held up there, the mixer. But using that one in a place like mine, like I'm never going to be doing more than 2 things at once where I'm sitting, just because I'm not going to have multiple musicians in the house. I have done it before where I've had 5 of us in here all playing through headphones. I was using a headphone breakout box basically. So that each, you had 4 separate headphone volumes. So everybody could have their own headphone volume. It was all the same mix, but everyone could have their own volume. But it was just, I mean, my place is so small that to have 5 of us in here, I'm looking around, I'm like, I don't even know where everybody was.
Knocking each other in the head with your instruments.
We managed to all get in here and do some stuff. There's bass, guitar, keys, a couple vocals. So we managed to get everything working. But just having that option, or just knowing that generally speaking is always going to be, me doing an instrument and singing, or at most, so like it's not going to be more than 2 signals that I have to deal with. So that Mackie or the small mixing boards are perfect for what I'm doing here. But I would not be suitable if I was trying to get more than a few people in here to go. But that's where I would start looking into anything from usually probably 16 would be the minimal I would go for. So that way you can get a fully mic'd up drum kit and still get enough for vocals and instruments after that. But it depends what you're trying to do for a studio.
Yeah, 16 would be I mean, I compromised with in my case, I compromised with the 10 channel just because the price between the 10 and the 12 just wasn't worth the extra 2 channels.
Right. Now,
But
in some cases,
16 would be my minimum if I was building a home studio, which we're going to be getting into.
Oh, yeah.
16 would be my minimum, and ideally 32. Like
yeah.
wherever your minimum is, double it.
Yeah. But also remember that one thing that kind of simplified our setup sometimes on live gigs is we ran into situations where the drummer is using an electronic kit, and that almost never happens. Like almost all the drummers we work with, it's a full kit, and we fully mic up the whole kit. Mics up all the drums, and runs all the cables, runs everything to the snake, and we have enough channels to do all that, even with the larger bands. But when we go to a band where it's it's a 4-piece gig and the drummer is on an electric kit, so he's just got 1 channel coming across, and then he has like an effects pad, so he can get the bell for Hell's Bells, things like that.
Oh
So
yeah,
it's like
digital drummers are great. It's like
Oh, yeah.
dealing with a synthesizer. You just left right it.
And if you have that going on, then that home studio situation equation suddenly becomes a lot easier, because now that 10 or 12 that you're talking, even on a 10, if you're only using one or two for drums, you still have plenty for, four vocals, four instruments at the same time, or, six vocals, two, and whatever you're trying to set up, even just that simultaneously. And again, you can always do layering is the other thing that people don't always think about is, there's the capturing everything live that happens all at once, but then there's whatever the final recording is. And a lot of times it could be that, okay, we're going to go through it. The guitar player is just going to do a rhythm part and keep everything running through. Go back later and he can add another layer. It's easy enough, especially with when we're doing it on the personas, for example. I can just jump to another track, or on any of them really. You can just jump to another track or digitally change the inputs and say, okay, now we're going to record another track here as the guitar part, and just go. And then you have it play back everything else, and you just record that other part in there.
Yeah,
And
and that's where I have more fun when it comes to making music, layering
yep.
and adding those tracks on top. To me, that's more enjoyable than just banging out that one track. Like
Mhm.
I like to compose
Yeah.
and layer those different instruments and sounds.
Yeah. And even just the jams that we did the last couple of days, like I went to two different jam sessions yesterday, and or three, but two of them we were doing some recordings and got three people. Each session was just three people, and it was just some ideas just going off the top or running through some. Somebody has an idea and they just start building on a lick and they get a little chord progression going, and we just kind of build it up from there. But it was just very organic in that we didn't have to talk about a lot of stuff. It just kind of fell into these grooves, and then the groove built up. And then in the case of in a jam session with Angie, she'll start singing, whether it's prepared words that she already had that fit the mood of what we're doing from a list of things that she has, or she'll just go off the top with things, and it's always fun doing
Oh,
those
she'll
jams.
she'll get you going no matter what.
Yep. That was the first jam was with her and Bill, and then I went over to Pepe's, and it was me and Pepe and cousin Jeff. And so it was the three of us where Pepe was on guitar, I was on bass, and Jeff was on the keys there. We'd already had something that Pepe and I'd worked out. I think I told you about it the last a couple weeks ago, or it might have been last week even, where it was just me and Pepe, and the two of us worked out a song that he'd been working on. It was an idea that he had in his head, and he was trying to figure out the chord progression, but he kept, as he's going around, he's not quite sure how it is. So like we just kind of went back and forth together on it and kind of made it more solid. Got a recording down, or it's just the idea. It's not, it's nothing permanent, nothing final. It's just, hey, let's get an idea of how it goes around, and we could try a few variations and all of that. But then we worked on it with Jeff the other day, and we ended up doing probably recorded like a half hour of stuff total, where it was a 10-minute piece of this groove, and then we switched the drum groove entirely and went into something else, and now let's try this, and built that into something. So it's
Yeah,
fun to just kind of fall into these.
that's how you smooth out your parts and your ideas until they turn into songs.
Yeah, and it's also why it's important. What I always say is, just record everything, or anytime you're going to be doing that sort of a thing, just record it all, and you can always throw away or not use or not even listen to any of the parts that you're not going to use or not going to worry about. But if you have even just one nugget that you guys had in there that was like, oh, I'm going to remember that later, you're not going to remember that later. Like if you have
You're
it
not.
recorded, you'd be listening back and go, oh, wait. Was that us? Like we did, like you just grab that 15-second clip there, and you go back and listen, and you're like, wow, that was really solid. I'm really cool. That came together really nice. And you just want that idea, and you can then build that into a whole song later. But if you didn't record it, you're going to lose it. So it's important. I mean,
Oh,
just
and
record it all, and then don't be afraid to
sometimes
throw it out if you have to.
sometimes the recording is just a reminder, like I'm a
Exactly.
song, don't forget me.
Yeah, that's what it is. Sometimes it's even lyrics. Sometimes it's a list of lyrics that have been,
Well,
looked at 3 years
sometimes
ago. And
the only way you're going to remember those lyrics is if you have a record. I have
Mhm.
Ange had to do it the other night when she came back from Bill's. Like she was listening to a track, writing down the
Yeah.
lyrics that she had done because she was going off the cuff.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why we do those recordings, and that's why it was good that I think not only was Bill recording on the board, I think he uses a Behringer, if I'm not mistaken. It's either a Behringer or a Yamaha, I don't remember. But he's had that for a little while. But he records it on there, and then also Angela's recording on her phone, just room recording, so that you get the idea of it there as well. Normally, I would have been recording with my camera as well, but I didn't have a chance to get everything set up there.
Yeah,
I was also I was a little bit late there too. So
the good thing nowadays, it's not like the tape days where recording meant you used up tapes, you got to go buy more tapes.
hmm
We're dealing with storage these days, and hard drives are huge, and
hmm
more often than not, we got way more space than we're actually using. So record, and
yep,
and if you fill up your hard drive on your mixer or your computer, take those and archive them to the cloud and use some of that free storage out there. If they give you 15 gigs for free in Google, that stores a shitload of songs.
Or get something like this.
Yeah, you got it. That's awesome. Glenn's gonna be expanding his horizons.
Now that I got some space, I've been feeling the space crunch.
Johnny scored a Tascam 424 on his last moving job. Hey,
Nice.
that's a good gig.
There you go. And scoring anything like that's always good.
Oh yeah, hey, all this equipment you see here came from a job.
And a good job at that. Now let's see which one we were talking. We were going to go to the home studio.
Yeah. We've got the which kind of feeds off of once you a mixer versus an interface, that's one decision. But when you're putting together a home studio, you are going to be deciding about a couple of different things. Sound reinforcement. It's not just an equipment decision.
Even sound treatment. Treating the walls, putting something up there, sound dampening so you don't get the reflections or echoes.
Yeah,
A lot of that stuff comes into play.
That's something I really would like to do. If I gut this and get everything out, I'd like to reinforce the room and then bring everything back in. Yeah, this is the how to set up a home music studio for beginners. And it's recent, 2023. So I was looking at different videos for this, and I seen some going back 3-4 years, and I wanted to get something more current because this is a constantly changing environment when it comes to what you would pick. So I gotta say, Edward Smith, his YouTube channel, when it comes to advice on building home studios, half of his videos are just about that. And he'll show you how to do it for under $300. He'll show you how to do it under $700, how to do it under $1,000. Each level, creates a different home setup. And nowadays,
different set of opportunities. Yeah.
Nowadays, we are building our own studios.
Absolutely. And and even the quality of stuff that you can get off of one of those, it could even be the minimum studio, like if it was a $300 setup or whatever, starting from scratch, starting from nothing, you can get professional sounding stuff out of that. There's nothing holding people back from being able to do that. It used to be that you had to be able to go into the multi-million-dollar studios in order to do things, but now anyone can.
If you do it right, you'll sound like you were in a multi-million-dollar studio when you got it set up good. There is no difference in sound when it's done right.
Yep.
So let's take a look. Edward Smith Music over at YouTube. How to set up a home music studio for beginners.
Nice.
Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and today I want to show you guys how to set up your very own home music studio step by step. I'm going to take you through what equipment you need, whether you're a producer or singer-songwriter, the best options for your budget, and how to get it all connected so you can get started straight away. So before we jump into this home studio setup, if you haven't already subscribed to this YouTube channel and you watch my content and you like my content, please do so and give this video a thumbs up, as I do have a goal of reaching 100,000 subscribers by the end of this year, and there's absolutely no way I can do that without you. So if you can subscribe and you haven't already, I would really appreciate it. Secondly, if you end up being interested in any of the equipment I run through in today's video, I will leave some links down in the description below. But without any further ado, let's get straight into setting up our very own home music studio. So the first thing you're going to need to set up your very own home music studio is a computer. Whether it is a laptop or a desktop is up to you. Whether it is a Mac or a Windows type computer is also up to you. But nowadays in 2022, these machines are so powerful that the biggest hits in the world are being made in an apartment, in a hotel room, on a laptop. And just trying to get the best laptop you possibly can is so important, because it is the centerpiece of everything, and it's literally the start and the end of making a good song. When it comes to picking a desktop or laptop for music production, the three key things you want to focus on is getting as much RAM as possible, as much storage as you possibly can, and the best processing power. If you're on a budget, the minimum amount of RAM that you're looking for is around 8 gigabytes. You're looking for at least 500 gigabytes of hard drive space and the best processing power you possibly can. And on screen I have quite a few cool budget options that you can go for. Like I mentioned earlier, I will leave the links down in the description below if you want to go check afterwards. But these laptops are really good if you're starting out. If you're not on a tight budget, like I said, you are trying to get the most amount of RAM you possibly can, storage and processing power. And at the moment, the current laptops I'm showing you right now are the best of the best, because they really give you a lot in those specific categories. Remember, when it comes to the computer you get for your home studio setup, it is the centerpiece and foundation of everything. So if you do cheap out, you are gonna struggle in the long run. The second thing you need for your home music studio setup is a music production software. And this is just as important as your laptop, because without the music production software, you can't make music anyway. So they do go hand in hand. And when it comes to getting a good music production software, there are quite a few out there that are really the most popular and most used. But when it comes to which one is better than another, it is all about preference. The most popular music production softwares out there consist of Pro Tools, Ableton Live, FL Studio, Logic Pro, Cubase, Reaper, even Studio One. All of these softwares come at a pretty high price, so if you're on a tight budget, try and get the entry-level versions of that software so that when you progress in future, you can always upgrade to the Pro version and have everything you need. So now that you have your laptop and your music production software, you can literally start making music. You don't really need all the equipment to actually start making a song and learning your software and doing all those kinds of things. But when it comes to making the whole process a little bit more creative and fun and just a lot more efficient, getting a few pieces of quality equipment can really make a big difference. And one piece of studio gear that really makes a difference is an audio interface. For those of you that don't know what an audio interface is, it's the middleman between your computer and any microphone or instrument you want to connect. Audio interfaces come in so many different shapes and sizes, and at the end of the day, it's all about finding the right one for your specific needs. In my opinion, the best audio interface to go for if you're starting out, and the most popular in most home studios, is a USB connecting audio interface. To get started, you literally plug in the audio interface straight into your laptop, you download the driver off the internet for your specific audio interface, and you're ready to go. On screen, I have a few pics of my favorite audio interfaces, especially if you're on a tight budget. And if money isn't really a problem regarding an audio interface, here are a few that are really good for better preamp quality and for more inputs depending on your specific needs. Now that we've covered what an audio interface is all about, I feel it's only appropriate to move on to our next piece of gear, the condenser microphone. And for those of you that don't know what a condenser microphone is, it's a microphone that picks up very detailed quality sound, and it's very crispy, but it does pick up a lot of sound everywhere, so it's not usually used in a live setting. It's used in a quiet studio environment because it is so sensitive. But because it isn't the usual microphone, it does need 48 volts of phantom power. And that phantom power is only being provided by an audio interface. Other microphones that you see on stage don't need an audio interface to work because they are dynamic microphones. But when it comes to a condenser microphone, you want that detail, you want that crispiness, you want that studio quality for a recording. An audio interface is going to be needed for that 48 volts of phantom power. As a singer-songwriter myself, I've tested so many different microphones on this channel already, and on a budget, these are the picks that I would go for if you really want to get the most for the money. And if you aren't on the tightest budget and you have some flexibility, these microphones are fantastic if you want to have a once-off microphone that you aren't going to be replacing anytime soon. When it comes to connecting a condenser microphone to your music studio setup, setup, all you have to do is get an XLR type cable, plug it into the microphone, and then plug it into your audio interface. Make sure you have that 48 volts of phantom power switched on, otherwise the microphone will not work, especially if it's a condenser microphone. Turn up the input volume of the microphone and start recording straight away. Now, the next piece of studio gear that's even more important than a condenser microphone, whether you are a producer or a vocalist, is a quality pair of studio headphones. If you don't have money to purchase studio monitors, or you're someone that's in a small environment, you're on the go, you don't have a big budget, getting a quality pair of studio headphones makes a big difference. I'm personally situated in an apartment where I can't constantly be playing music loud out of speakers, and most of the time I have to use my headphones when I'm making music, when I'm recording vocals, when I'm tracking, and I use these so much that I actually use them more than any of the other equipment in my studio setup. Because you are in a home studio environment, it's really important to get the honest truth of what your music is sounding like. And that's why so many pairs of headphones regarding music production and mixing and mastering is so much more expensive, because those headphones are trying to give you the flat, honest response of what your songs sound like, so that when you export your music, it sounds good in the car, it sounds good in cheap speakers, it sounds good pretty much everywhere. And the higher the price of the headphones, the better they usually are at giving you that truth and honest sound, especially if you're in a home studio type environment. If you are on a tight budget, there are definitely quite a few quality pairs of headphones out there that will do a very good job for you, not just for music production, but also for tracking vocals, recording, and even mixing and mastering if you're willing to pay that little bit more. But remember, other than your computer and maybe your audio interface, the next piece of gear you're gonna use the most and you're gonna depend on a lot is a quality pair of headphones. To connect your headphones to your music studio setup, plug them straight into your audio interface, turn up the headphone volume, and you're ready to go. Now, before we talk about studio monitors, I first want to talk about something that's really important, and that is acoustic treatment. If you're recording in a home studio environment, sound is bouncing all over the place, and in order to absorb that sound and even diffuse it, getting good acoustic treatment can help you get the best result in your music production, in your mixing later on, just help you get a great result with your final project. And especially when it comes to studio monitors, they aren't going to be able to give you the best results that you possibly can get if your room isn't acoustically treated. And if you're looking to get good acoustic panels like these, I will leave them linked down in the description below. It's very important, so make sure you don't neglect it. Now we move on to studio monitors, and for the beginners out there, a pair of studio monitors really help you to get a flat frequency response when you're mixing your song, because music production is just the creative side of things, but to get the levels and the audio quality right and really put everything together and mix it so that it sounds professional in its quality, a good pair of studio monitors really help you do that. If you're on a tight budget looking to get yourself a pair of studio monitors and you already have a great laptop, an audio interface, and a pair of headphones, these studio monitors really offer great value at a budget price. But if you have a little bit more money and you're looking to purchase a pair of studio monitors that are going to last longer and that you aren't going to want to replace anytime soon, these studio monitors really do a good job at also a very affordable price, and they do get a little bit more expensive as you go, but it's all about your budget and really making the smart purchase decision for your setup. When it comes to connecting your studio monitors to your music studio setup, each individual monitor has its own power supply because studio monitors are active, which means they are going to plug in individually into your power outlet, and then from there you plug in your studio monitors straight into your audio interface with an XLR or TRS cable. Make sure you turn on your studio monitors and you turn up the volume on your audio interface, and you're ready to go. Now, the last thing I believe you need for a music studio setup, especially if you are a producer, it's not necessarily for the singer-songwriters out there, is a nice MIDI keyboard. And this isn't necessary. You can definitely do everything you need to do regarding music production, mixing and mastering, and having a music studio without one of these. But if you are a producer, the creativity that a MIDI keyboard gives you, the fact that you can just play the sounds and get the melodies and even use your virtual instruments in your music production software a lot better, this is really a great purchase to go for. There are quite a few options out there regarding size, quality of the keys, the features, and at the end of the day, day, it's all about your specific setup, how much space you have, and what you really need. If you are just a singer-songwriter and you're looking to maybe play keys and just create your own songs, you don't really need all the features a MIDI keyboard offers. But on the other hand, if you are a producer and you like the drum pads and all the features with your specific software, going all out is not a bad idea. These are my current favorites if you're on a tight budget and you're looking for a small keyboard with a lot of features, or more keys with a keyboard offering less features. But if you do have more money again and you're not on a tight budget, here are a few options that offer fantastic quality and won't require replacing anytime soon. When it comes to connecting a MIDI keyboard to your home studio setup, in most cases MIDI keyboards are also USB connecting. They plug straight into your laptop or computer and you're ready to go. So that concludes this video of how to set up your very own home music studio, especially if you're a beginner, and the gear I would go for if I was going for a singer-songwriter type setup or a producer type setup. And just a reminder that if you're interested in any of this equipment, links will be down in the description below. If you have any questions about today's video, just leave a comment down below and I'll try and get back to you as soon as I can. But other than that, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please do give it a thumbs up, and if you loved it, subscribe down below, and I will see you for another video next time.
All right.
That was Edward Smith. Oh, it cuts it off. Okay, we go back to this. You suck, template.
Can even do this.
Oh, there you go. Ah, I like that.
Fancy.
Yeah, Edward Smith music. Man, he covered everything. He got everything he covered there was the kind of thought you want to put into your studio. Like, I know, Glenn, the computer suggestion. This one we could talk about all night. We have.
Oh yeah. Not only that, I mean, acoustic treatment, I'm glad that he went there because that's very important for that kind of a thing as well. Once you've got sound playing in the room, of course.
Yeah,
headphones
you saw
gets you away from that.
You saw those panels that he was showing. I was watching videos as I was grabbing these. I was watching videos how to make your own panels for like 25, $30 a pop instead of 350. I mean, those were pretty, but they're pretty expensive.
There'll also be differences in performance, of course, and some of the highest end acoustic treatments that I've seen are the ones that it almost looks like wedges are coming out at you, so that like all the sound waves that are going in, they're just bouncing and deflecting into nowhere.
Well,
they all just vanish essentially.
You must have done the poor man's treatment with like the eggshell curtains, like back in the day. That's what our band room was like surrounded in.
I'm looking around because I think I still have like I would say 3 to 4 foot tall stack of drink holders, like from if you go through a drive-through and they give you more than one beverage.
Even better. Those are even better than the egg ones.
Yeah, and I just ended up throwing them, and keep throwing them in the back seat, and eventually I would end up just stacking them, and I would end up with a huge stack. So I would just keep them at the house. And a friend of mine was over, and he saw them. He's like, "Why didn't you throw those out?" I'm like, "Acoustic treatment." He just starts shaking his head. And it's like, I will use those one day.
In a band room, I had no problem. In your bedroom, if you're going to use something like that, you might want to paint it up or make it look better. But like in a band room.
Well, the other thing is you could even do that. Like if you just were to line a wall, let's say, with that, and then throw something over it, whether it's a piece of fabric.
Oh, yeah. If you're doing treatment, you throw a heavy blanket on top of those, and it literally nobody can hear you outside.
Yeah, because it's another layer beyond that. So you're losing the high frequencies here, the low frequencies there, but you're some will still escape somewhere if it's not perfect, but it would definitely minimize largely the sound getting out.
Or if your guitarist has a Marshall that goes to 11.
Yeah, exactly. And I've seen people where they take, they have an amp that they want at a loud volume, but they don't want it to be loud in the house. So they have like they had like a closet that was in the middle of the house, like, not near an outside wall at all. And it was a very small closet. So they were able to just very solidly sound treat the whole inside of that closet, put the amp in the closet, and just run cables and put a mic in the closet. So the mic was getting, the amp was loud. The mic was picking up the loud amp in the closet, but you're out here. So you're just monitoring. You're getting it all through the headphones.
That is a great way to capture an amp clean with no distraction.
And I was thinking even about the voice isolation box that we talked about from, was it
Oh,
from Antiphone, I think, at one
Antiphone is
point.
still waiting for me to build him one.
Yeah, but my thought was like that same idea, instead of having to sound treat a whole room, you could just sound treat a box that's big enough to get, your amp with a mic in front of it and then just kind of seal it in. You don't want the sound to bounce around in there, so you'd want, solid sound treatment or that foam like all around the inside. But if it was just, big enough to get, a little bit of space
Oh, your
around the amp
head.
and a microphone.
We got to get your
Yeah.
big ass head into that box.
Exactly. Get a hat box.
That
But yeah, just doing that kind of thing, you could really isolate, something down to where it could be loud and still, not disturb people around you.
Yeah, and oh, I felt better after that video. Those BM5s that he showed in there that were $500. Those
Hmm.
monitors, I
Hmm.
got those BM5s for 199,
Nice. There
like
you go.
7 years ago. I mean, I also
Hmm.
bought like $4,000 worth of other equipment, so they were like, sure, hey, you can have these for 199, but the
Nice.
price has gone up on some of that equipment.
Hmm. Yeah, and again, for me, the monitors and the sound treatment both go into the fact that I basically do everything headphones because I don't want to make a lot of noise here. So in my environment, I can skip out on the studio monitors and on the treatment. But again, I'm not doing much serious stuff here in my little home
Well,
studio. I'm just
and
getting instrument parts in and
everything he
things.
was talking about with the headphones was like advice to the apartment dweller.
Yeah, and I like the fact that he really gave a lot of ranges where it was like, oh, here's the $99 ones and the $200 ones and the $300 ones. Oh, and here's the $800 ones and the $900 ones. Showing a few different ranges of
Oh
things. And
yeah, I picked up on that right away because I'm always looking. I want to see what the lowest and the highest are. And then
hmm.
I sort out in the middle, like, where is my budget? With the computer,
Hmm.
like, that's one where I have bought thousands of computers for people and based on their needs, because
Hmm.
you gotta know what people are gonna, and sometimes people don't actually know what they're really gonna do, especially when it
Right.
comes to computers. Oh, I want a computer for music.
Hmm.
Okay, what kind of music are you going to be making? Are you going to be singing into that computer? Are you going to be playing MIDI instruments? Or
Hmm.
possibly both? You know, one thing he mentioned there, when you're buying your equipment, spending a little more, you might get a
Hmm.
piece of equipment that's future proof, that's going to
Yeah,
last
exactly.
you long enough that you're not going to be buying something to solve the same problem a year later.
That's one thing where my threshold on the memory would not be all the way down to 8 gigs. Like even
Well,
if somebody was at the bottom end, I would definitely not go below 16. But that's
yeah, well,
that's a
he
different
gave
story.
the minimum. Like when
Yeah.
he's trying to show a studio like under $500. Well,
Right.
if the computer costs you $500, then the rest of your studio has no budget.
Right. And even the other day, I was talking with one of the guys about a new machine for the studio, and people still have the idea that it would be, oh, it's going to be $2,000 for a new laptop or a new machine to put in the studio, and I'm like, you could really do it for a few $100s at this point, because I mean, if you already have like that input, like that Tascam we talked about, where it's the 24, 16 or 24 channel input, um, 16 I believe it was for the Tascam there. That's already coming in. We're already recording right into Cakewalk, and it's already all set up. But the machine that we're using is really old
Well,
and can't even upgrade
it
to.
goes to show you the majority of the work's being done on the Tascam side. Even
Yep.
an old computer is
Hmm.
kind of fine for that scenario. The one
Hmm.
disadvantage with an older computer, you're going to be dealing with SATA drives, platter drives.
Hmm.
They're so much slower than SSD drives. And in today's computer, if you want to be recording and capturing at the fast, hard drive writes take more of the work to sample while you're laying down your track. That hard drive is one of the biggest bottlenecks.
Hmm.
Going to SSD is kind of a necessity for a music machine. If you're recording to a platter or to a, God forbid, a USB drive, it's going to affect your sampling rate, your capture, your options.
Yep. And it also largely depends on how many channels you're trying to record at
Yeah.
once. Where again, if you're just trying to do your one part, no big deal, one or two parts. But if you're trying to do an entire band on 8 or 16 tracks, that though, imagine all of those being written simultaneously to the hard
Yeah,
drive. That's where you really need the
a
performance.
platter, you might be able to get 2 to 4 channels, and a good SATA 6, not a SATA 3. I mean, anything before SATA 3, they were too slow to handle writing multiple tracks at the same time.
One good solution that I think is to have have a solid state drive for your operating system. You have another solid state drive for the actual recording. So both of those are getting you very, very fast performance, but they're not going to be larger drives because you're not going to get the larger drives would be very expensive. So you keep those drives relatively small and inexpensive, but one's for the operating system, and then a separate one is for the actual recording as you're doing stuff. And then you have the platter drives, the slower performance drives that you're
For
talking about, the
archiving.
larger ones for storage and
Yeah.
archiving, so that after the stuff's all recorded from today's session, for example, you just start transferring it off onto the other drive. So now it's over there. You can deal with it there, do your mixing, what you're going to do there. But these performance drives are for when you're trying to get that much written simultaneously. Everything else after that isn't as urgent.
Yeah,
for that.
yeah. If you keep your good fast drive for work purposes, and then when you're done with the work, you move them over to that USB drive or that platter, or shit, to even to the cloud.
Mhm.
It's all a matter of, if you do need to work on it again, you can always take it, put it back on the nice fast drive, do your work, and archive it afterwards.
Exactly.
Keep that fast drive clean and ready to record new tracks.
And that's a good workflow, good process to get into. And it's similar to what I do with my cell phone for videos when I'm doing these shows, because I use my cell phone to video, 3 hours at a gig. And then you can only do that once or twice, and you fill up everything that's in the phone. If I have 50 gigs free on the card at the beginning, I'll fill half of that at a gig. So I have to then upload that to the cloud and make sure I keep clearing it out of the phone so that the phone is, empty again to be available for the next show. But getting into that habit is good, and the same thing applies here. Using the fast drives for the stuff that you really need the performance on, and then just thinking of the larger drives as that's the storage we're going to put it after the fact. This is where I'm going to work on it actively.
Yeah, even with these cheap computers, if it does come with an SSD as the system drive, at worst it's going to be 128 gigs, or mine actually was like I think a 256. So it's not like it's a big drive. I really have to consider what I'm putting on my system drive. And you know me, like 120 gigs, kind of a necessity. I got to put samples and big 30 gig of just Steinberg samples.
Yeah. And that's where I have a similar thing going on where my system drive, I recently had upgraded to a larger solid state, so I think it's in the 400 range, 400 gigs. But the one that I had been using as my primary drive was a 150, and that's what I have now as my Call of Duty drive. So that was the one where I had any of the games that I wanted to play, high performance, I would pop on there.
That's an important drive, though.
Yeah, exactly. When you want fast access, you want it to be a solid state, and you want it to not be the system drive. So by just having two solid states, even if they're relatively small, one for the system that's got enough free space to do all it needs to, and then one for the stuff you're really trying to process, and then having extra for other drives for storage, long-term storage.
Yeah,
is useful as well.
when it comes to making music or gaming, they both have similar demands in that sense. So if you're like looking for a computer to make music, it doesn't actually hurt to look at the gaming machines. Will eat up computer work and laugh like, I can play Unreal.
Exactly, because usually they are quite high on memory, cutting edge processor, plenty of fast hard drive as well, because all the performance issues that we talk about for doing music also apply when it comes to doing video games, but in different ways. It's usually more of a video bottleneck at that point, and that's usually where we get into the RTX cards, and that can be a big difference in price on machines. If you're building a studio machine,
and that's
the RTX is not as important, but if it's a gaming machine as well, you're going to try to build that in.
Yeah, that's one of the things where if you're really trying to do this on a budget, and that $300 laptop isn't going to have like a high-end NVIDIA card in it. None of them do. But if it's a music machine doesn't need fancy 3D. Like, it does need a little bit of 3D. It has to support DirectX, like you notice with the new Cakewalk. Like last year, they updated Cakewalk and started to incorporate 3D into their wave display. And I noticed it right away, because my video cards on some of the machines where I use Cakewalk would say, like, or they would crash
Oh.
after the update. And I was like, okay,
That's usually how you find out.
yeah,
Crashes.
why is this crashing? And it was because the it defaulted to showing the wave with you know 3D aspects to it, and
Hmm.
because that had like a crappy AM the Radeon drivers,
Hmm.
which didn't work.
Right. I've been a fan of NVIDIA for a long time,
But it's
and
been rare that like video has ever affected music production. I've never
right.
ran across a program where it's like, oh, you don't have high end 3D graphics, you can't run this.
The one thing when we mentioned future proofing, what I was thinking is anyone who's doing music production will at some point want to make a video, probably.
Yeah,
And when it
that's
comes
where
to
it
video
comes in
production,
handy.
when it comes to video production, now now you're getting ahead of that as well. Like if you do kind of take a think about a gaming machine, for example, now you would be set for the music production stuff. Everything's good performance wise, as well as having the RTX, let's say, for doing the video production, where you can do rendering very quickly. You've seen the difference firsthand about the difference between not having an RTX card trying to render and the time it takes with an RTX. So you can really you know see how that stuff makes a difference.
Yeah, if you're shopping for a machine to make music, my suggestion would be at the low end, you're 300 to 500. You're making some compromises. Uh, until you get to about 500. At that point, you're not really compromising anything. But
Hmm.
between 500 to 700, if you got the budget for that computer, and a computer is as useful for other things as it is a music machine. So
Hmm.
that $500 to $700 range, that's when you have the 16 to 32 gigs. That's when you are on i7s, or even
Hmm.
better, if you really shop around at the $800 range, i9s.
Hmm.
Getting a machine that's future proof for say the next 5 years isn't a bad idea, and it really doesn't cost that much more, because the difference between
Hmm.
the brand new machines that are out there that are going to be around for the next 5 years and the economy ones, usually like a $200 to $300 difference.
Hmm. Yep. And that's the thing is once you're getting a machine, people who do try to go for the very, very, very lowest, I always kind of encourage against that. But it's, it is something where, your budget is your budget. If you can only get in the door with this, then understand the compromises that you're making to do that. But being able to invest that little bit more, you really can future proof for, even a decade,
you
you could
can
use a machine
you
for.
can save more money in the next
Hmm.
18 months than you're not spending at that point.
Hmm. Yep.
And
And again, there are multiple ways to go about it, and different trade-offs, and people have different levels of equipment around already. So like, your studio might already be half built and you only need, this piece and that piece. Somebody just needs a PC and this, and somebody else is like, oh, my brother just, had a gaming PC that he just gave me so that I can put that in my music studio. Now all I need is this and this. But the one thing I wanted to mention that he didn't mention when he was talking about picking the software was that when it comes
mm,
to if you are going to be buying an interface or a mixer or any of those kinds of things, many of them will give you software. Like with
yeah,
the Personas, when it was a high-end Personas that we bought for the machine, so they do give you full Studio One. When they got the
shit,
Tascam,
even
they gave us something else.
The little
Hmm.
Personases give you a very functional Studio One. It's not like
Exactly.
massive tracks, but it's
Mhm.
like what, 24 tracks?
And I think that that's why it's important to, before necessarily picking which software you're going to dive into, when you do check out all the hardware, understand that they probably will give you software so that that can save you that aspect of the expense. So rather than getting the computer and then the software first, and then looking at the stuff like interfaces, I would look at the interfaces for the purpose of getting the free software, let's say.
Yeah, yeah, and if
And there's also free options like Cakewalk as well. I mean, perfectly usable as well.
yeah, yeah, if you're any of you out there are wanting to build that music computer and want some good advice, I mean that's what we're here for. And you
Hmm. Yep.
guys can send us messages over at Talking IT on BandLab. Just
Hmm.
get rid of that G. G's an
Yeah. Yep.
asshole.
Geez, NASA.
Talking
And there's three
IT.
H's in there. Three H's.
Yeah, and
IT.
if you're really serious about it, you want to get the computer set up. I mean, these are services that like I've been doing since the '90s, so I'll
Hmm.
help you get your machine set up. And if buy me some beer and the time, and it's all good.
It's all good. Now, we had one that was the setting up the studio. We had another one that was about guitar recording mistakes.
Oh
Guitar
yeah,
home
yeah.
studio.
The mistakes, guitarists, the 6 mistakes. I think that's what it was, 6.
6 worst guitar home recording mistakes.
And I had to jump on this one because it's one of those things we're constantly talking about over in the Zoom, with guitarists, and like, how are you plugging that guitar into the computer, and why does it sound the way it does?
What I like especially is that it's coming at it from the negative side of it, in terms of so many things are like, oh, here's the top 5 things to do, or the best these things to do, or this, like, everyone's talking about the best things to do, but this is saying here are the things to really stay away from, like the worst mistakes that people are making that are easy to just easy to knock out of your setup to improve greatly just by getting rid of these kinds of mistakes.
And I kind of suspected a few of them he might mention. There's a few of them that, like, I've seen guitarists make that mistake with their interfaces and how they run them in some mixers. You need to use that high Z.
Yep.
And if you don't,
exactly, and even this little Mackie has the high Z button on the little 4-channel Mackie mixer that I have here.
Yeah, and
it's got high Z for those channels.
And whether they have active or passive and other factors. So I wouldn't be surprised if he talks about some of that stuff.
Oh yeah, other factors like even pedals. If you're going, just the instrument itself, whether it's active, passive, whether you're going through pedals, how much gain they add to things. But we've talked about that, so I'm definitely interested to see what he's got to say here.
Yeah,
and I've seen videos of his for other things, including things like picking speed, like how to hold the pick better for faster picking speed and things like that.
Oh yeah, I recognized him when I saw him. I was like, oh, this dude made a video about that. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he's at Bernth Guitar over on YouTube. Cool fucking logo too.
Yeah.
All right, so you guitarists out there, these are the 6 worst guitar home recording mistakes you can make.
Just don't do it.
Back to the channel, fellow shredder Bernd here. As you can see, I finally have a new setup, a little home studio, all for myself. I still have to improve the reverb with some additional audio treatment. So since we are already talking about home studio mistakes with this, let's go through 6 of the worst of them when it comes to recording guitar at home. I'm sure you were really frustrated at some point with the quality of your own recordings. Or maybe you don't even know where to start since you don't have any equipment yet. So one of my personal biggest mistakes was not getting a proper USB interface right away. This is pretty much the most essential thing you will need when you're starting out, because you probably want to connect your guitar to your computer or laptop somehow. And this sadly doesn't really work out that well. When I started out, I had a really cheap interface and don't even remember the brand name anymore. So when it was time to record my very first guitar track for a professional studio job at home, the producer told me that the DI tracks that I sent had a weird buzz on them. And that unwanted noise was of course greatly amplified when he was reamping all of my signals. In the end, he basically told me to
record everything again from scratch.
And I still have nightmares about that production. So guys and girls, please be smarter than me. Like pretty much everybody else, I'm working with the Focusrite Scarlett 2i2. I even recorded most of my new album Elevation with it and went into the studio with the DI tracks for reamping and mixing. Pro tip number 1. If you want something fancier, my producer recently recommended the Universal Audio Apollo Twin Mark II. This one also comes with tons of awesome plugins as far as I know, but if you're just starting out, I don't really think that you can go wrong with this one. The second huge mistake that might result in some extensive re-recordings is a badly intonated guitar. And this one is a really sneaky problem factor. Because what I don't mean with this is recording with a guitar that's simply out of tune. Beautiful. What this is all about is recording with a guitar that's not intonated properly. So while your open strings might be perfectly in tune, the notes you are playing and fretting are slightly sharp or flat because the guitar isn't set up correctly. The devilish detail right here is that you might not even hear this when you're just working with this one guitar. But as soon as you start adding other instruments like bass or samples, you will notice that something is terribly wrong. and trust me, this results in a lot of drama and extra work. So my suggestion is bringing the guitar to a shop or to a professional before very important recording appointments, and also telling them the tuning you will record in. I have to admit, I personally always was about playing and practicing with my instruments and not so much about setting them up and taking care of them. So I always prefer bringing them into a shop before tours or before very important studio appointments, just to make sure that everything is set up correctly. Pro tip number 2 concerning that: please also make sure to change your strings for the best possible results. We also changed them multiple times in the studio when we're working for a couple of days. Yes, it's tedious to constantly change strings when you're in the studio, but trust me, it will pay off with your sound. Another huge and quite serious mistake on your guitar journey concerns around 70% of you awesome people that are watching this video right now. Yes, I know I'm repeating myself, but nothing has changed. Still around 70% of you fellow shredders are not a real part of our amazing YouTube guitar community yet. So make sure to join the cool kids right now by subscribing. At least we like to think we're the cool kids. You will really benefit from being part of our shred community here on YouTube. So what I can't recommend enough personally is always recording a DI track. So the naked, unedited, untouched, rough signal that comes straight out of your guitar. Because another one of my personal early mistakes was recording with a sound that I thought was perfect as a teenager. And then the producer of my first band told me that it's absolutely terrible. And he made a couple of good points. Way too much gain. Why did you scoop the mids that much? There is zero clarity with this tone. All I can hear is why did you record 4 lead guitar tracks that all do the exact same thing? Oh, somebody told you about quad tracking, right? Yeah, thanks a lot for that constructive input. So when you always capture that raw DI signal, you can give your producer a lot of freedom to reamp it and to change the sound after the recordings. This is so awesome because you can leave open all creative options. An aggressive high gain part might become a crunch channel section, or a beautifully arranged and planned clean part might turn into a fuzzy distorted mess. So if you are working with a Kemper or any other modern or classic amplifier, you can still record your signature sound that you really like, and you also simultaneously record a DI track of what you're playing. That way you can still send over your preferred tone for the part, and in case it doesn't work out in the mix, you still have the possibility to change it afterwards. I show you exactly how to do this in the home recording course that I published on Patreon that I will talk about in just 1 second. But first, pro tip number 3. When you're dialing in your input levels, make sure to check them with your heaviest picking strokes or accents to avoid any clipping. So that would be too much. Better safe than sorry, you really need a good and clean signal for any kind of further processing in the studio. Now, if you still don't know where to start with recording your guitar at home, with mixing and mastering your own songs, with EQing your takes, with effects and all of that stuff, I recorded a full 30-minute home recording online course just for you with Austrian multi-platinum producer Daniel Fellner. This one is available for all members on Patreon, and you will learn how to easily dial in your perfect guitar tone, how to EQ and process your takes, how to mix your own songs, and much, much more. As always, the link is in the description below and pinned as the first comment. Yes, this one might sound a bit boring, but it's incredibly important as well. So when I started out, I really didn't care about that tedious last step, exporting my files, my songs and my demos. MP3 is what I knew by name. Back when I was young, I still had an MP3 player. Most of you won't even know what that is. I even had a Discman. Yes, I know I'm getting old. So I really didn't know about the differences with all those formats and if it really matters that much. Turns out your producer won't be happy when you send him or her a heavily compressed MP3 file. Of course, I also learned that the hard way. So before you start exporting hundreds of files, make sure to ask what's preferred. Most of the time it's an uncompressed WAV file, 24-bit, 48 kHz or 44.1 kHz. So don't mix up all kinds of different settings when you're exporting your files for your studio production. It will drive your producer or engineer crazy, and of course it costs a lot of extra time and work. Pro tip number 4 concerning this: always make sure to bounce your tracks with the exact same pre-counts to make things really easy for the studio. If you just place your locators randomly with each track, it will be very tedious to arrange all the different tracks correctly. If you always leave 2 or 4 measures, for example, the workflow of putting the projects together will be really easy, and your producer will love you for small details like that. Attention! One detail that can really ruin your high gain tracks is if you constantly have open strings ringing through, especially when you're shredding. We looked at a lot of really helpful exercises to fix technique mistakes like that with your playing, but it does take quite a long time to adjust your technique and to correct bad playing habits like that. So if you're not quite there yet and you still have to deliver clean and perfectly executed tracks, I can really recommend using a fret wrap for your recordings. If you don't have one, you can also just use a cloth or a sock. Please just make sure to wash them first. In my personal opinion and experience, it's not that good to always practice with a string dampener, especially if you want to learn how to play without one at one point. But for recording purposes, it's perfectly fine. You will get a much cleaner signal and the clarity of your sound intakes will really benefit from that, of course. Pro tip number 5. I always really liked the Groove Gear fret wraps and used them quite a lot over the last couple of years. Nowadays I mostly use them if I have to record tricky tapping parts that don't allow me to mute the other strings with my palm, for example. Your DAW or DAW or digital audio workstation is where you record, mix, master, produce and so on. When I started out, I made the mistake of saving money at the wrong places and I worked with a free program that had tons of limitations, from export settings to recording quality to effects and so on. I'm quite sure that things have changed by now and that there's a lot of awesome free recording software out there. Make sure to comment which DAW you are using at the moment. So anyways, what made a huge difference for me is upgrading to Cubase at some point. I currently work with Cubase 11 and once you figure out your personal workflow, you will have a great time recording every day without any limitations and in professional quality, of course. Pro tip number 6. Spend just a bit of extra time on research and try to find the program that's best for you and your personal needs. Most people I know work with Cubase, Logic or Pro Tools. And finally, something a bit more creative. How do you actually set up your projects once you have all your gear, and how do you start recording your guitar takes? What obviously made a huge difference right away is double tracking my rhythm guitars and panning them left and right. This makes them really big and awesome sounding and you will be completely blown away when you do this for the very first time. But since this sounded so awesome, I started doing this for everything that I recorded, from bass to lead guitar tracks to solos and so on. And as you can probably imagine, this didn't have the same effect at all. I thought that more is more when it comes to songwriting and recording, but in this case less is truly more. Your song and project probably doesn't need 10 lead guitar tracks, 6 rhythm guitar tracks, 12 keyboard sample layers, 4 different drum kits and so on. Just keep it simple, especially when you're starting out. Record 2 rhythm guitar tracks and pan them left and right. Add some guitar solos or lead guitar tracks if you have some great ideas. And if you feel like certain parts sound too empty, you can still figure it out later in the studio with your producer, after looking at the frequency spectrum. Pro tip number 7. Please try to avoid working in the same section of your fretboard for different rhythm and lead guitar tracks. Use your knowledge and fretboard visualization skills to your advantage and spread out your ideas across multiple octaves. That way you make everything much more transparent and your tracks won't clash and battle each other in the exact same spot in the mix. I really hope that I could help you out today by showing you some of my personal worst guitar home recording mistakes. Make sure to get the full home recording course on Patreon to learn much more about dialing in your perfect tone, mixing, mastering, EQing and all that good stuff. And here's your random German word for today: Quintenzirkel. This one is extremely scary. It is our German overly complicated word for the circle of fifths. Make sure to comment this below. I'm really looking forward to seeing your spelling for that. Let's confuse everybody together that didn't watch this video until the end. Leave a like in case you enjoyed and don't forget to subscribe to join our awesome YouTube community. See you soon. Bye bye.
Oh,
Quintenzirkel.
Burnt
Burnt.
guitar at YouTube.
Good stuff in there.
Great tips all around. I mean, tell me that did not sound like half of our Zoom conversations on any given night. When he came in with intonation, I was like, okay, he's got Glenn.
Yep. I'm like, yep, that's a big one. I hear that one. That's one that we talk about in Zoom a lot. I mean, if someone's just, they just pick up their guitar and start noodling something, that's totally cool. To me, it helps to like make sure it's in tune to start with. And that's the thing is, even if it was just tuned, sometimes you can just hear that it's just, again, if it's a little bit sharp, a little bit flat, just checking that intonation is so big, because once the guitar is in tune, intonated properly, everything just sounds so nice and clean. Like people, they hear me hitting chords midway up the neck and things, and it's like, wow, that sounds so nice. I mean, I'm just hitting a very simple chord, but it just sounds nice and clean because the guitar is beautifully intonated from being professionally set up at one point and well maintained
Yeah,
since.
when you have a nice tune and a nice intonation, you're hitting the sweet spot.
Yep. And once you got that intonation set, there's really, if you're not making major changes to the guitar, I mean, if there's large
Or
fluidity
you're not
swings,
beating the
temperature
shit
swings,
out of it.
beating the shit out of it, that's important. Some people, they bend the strings so much that they can cause things to come out of tune again. But uh, notwithstanding those kinds of issues, all you really have to do is just make sure you tune it, like pick it up, make sure it's in tune, and then go. And it also depends what you're playing. If you're playing along with something, some of the things that you'll hear recorded, Jimi Hendrix, you'll find things in 438 tuning, other things are in 432, other things are
Hey,
in
I
445,
love
where
me
they just tuned to
432.
something. Oh yeah. And that's the thing is, I'm open to those kinds of things, and that's where having
Well, guitars,
a cutlass
especially
is good.
when I was convinced of 432, it was because
Mhm.
of the sound of an acoustic steel string and a nylon.
Sure.
The guitars, the tuning really feels so much more natural. And go to mandolins and banjos, it just becomes more obvious.
hmm Matter of fact, I'll go ahead and I'll tune the acoustic to 432 for next time. I broke it out actually when I went over to Pepe's house, and I was there with Pepe and Jeff. So I broke it out, and Jeff was going to go sit down at the keyboard right as we got there, and I just I was going to go talk to Pepe for a couple minutes. I was like, "Hey, I brought that acoustic." He's like, "Wait, that one from your house?" Because he remembered playing it before. He's like, "Oh yeah." So I gave it to him, and instead of sitting at the keyboard, he grabbed that and he played that for the first 20 minutes or so, because it just has such a good feel and such a nice round sound, and he plays amazingly. So I mean, giving him something like that is just like, wow, I just want to sit back and watch.
Guitarists play with their toys.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
A- and
And he loves that.
for guitarist advice with this one, you know, the other things he mentioned, he's a Cubase guy. Not
hmm
surprised. And if I had the money, I was a Cubase guy from like 2000 to 2010. The only
hmm
reason why I went back to Cakewalk was it's hard to compete with $1,000 versus $0. And as long as I'm a Band Lab member, sold.
Yeah. Yep. No problems there. Exactly. And I have multiple options. Like I mentioned, we have some experience with multiple different, software to use, and watching Jason and his workflow in Reaper, that's been a
Well,
real eye opener as
I,
far
I
as that would be a good thing to get used to also.
I'm as convinced with Reaper as I am with Cakewalk.
hmm
Reaper's not expensive. I mean, it's technically freeware, and
hmm
if you do pay for the $50, it's just supporting the open-ended software they're building.
Yep. And if somebody is just starting out and they're not familiar with any of the software, I would recommend grabbing the free ones, not even to get, necessarily feel like you're forced into them, but to start with multiple ones to see which one fits your workflow best. And then you'll find which one, that might help guide you to which one you'd want to use, because, getting them free is excellent. And if it's free and it happens to fit with your workflow, that's even better. But sometimes it'll be like you try Reaper and you try Cakewalk and you decide that you prefer one or the other. And then when you do decide you want to actually spend money on software, you'll pick one that is more similar to one or the other,
Yeah,
or has features similar to what you're used to from one or the other.
if you're going to pay for it, you want to know what you're getting and why you're
Yeah.
getting it.
Yep. And that's why, again, I recommend getting the hardware first, because a lot of times with the hardware, they will give you a not the free version of, but a full license. Like, here's a license for something that's better than what you would get for free. So
Yeah,
whether it's sometimes it's even just plugins.
Ableton's a popular one. Like, when
Yep.
you're getting like MIDI controllers and stuff, don't be surprised you get a copy of Ableton with it.
Yep. Exactly. And the fact that to put it in there, all they really have to do is put in a little leaflet that has a serial number on it, and you have it. So it's not like it's complex for them to include it with things.
Yeah, and
Some people,
and the software is stored in the cloud, so as long as you're logging into your account, putting in that license, that software is there. You change machines, install it again.
hmm yep. And they usually give you, like you were saying, multiple license activations so that you can put it on this machine. And then when this machine crashes, you can put it on the next machine and all that.
Yeah, and no matter which DAW you're using, good practice is more important than the DAW itself. He mentions that, like, set your clips consistently, because it makes production so much easier.
Yep. Good
A
habits.
pro who's sending a guitar track to a studio and there's multiple tracks, you don't want to be sending your clips that are starting at different times. A lot of times you're sending stems, and stems start at the beginning to the end if they're set up properly. Even the dead space is considered part of the stem wave.
I've gotten into that habit too. Like I don't.
Well,
I do see people at their workflow. They have a lot of little pieces.
otherwise, you have to send a source project folder. So, like, if I send you a cakewalk folder and you have cakewalk, the folder I send you, you can open up and all the clips are where they're supposed to be because cakewalk keeps track of that. If I send you a Reaper project folder with the proper files and the clips, because Reaper doesn't store things the same way as Cakewalk. Cakewalk makes a clip folder and it keeps all content necessary for this project included. But
and that's the thing.
if you get that, if you get a source file and open a source file on another machine, the other person, assuming they have the same plugins, can load up your project and continue to mix and add tracks and turn off an effects processor if they don't want it on.
Yeah. Part of why I would usually have the have the tracks full track from the very from zero to the end of the track for each of the tracks that are in the project. It makes it easier to mix, makes it easier so things, if something does get moved or shuffled, it stands out immediately. Because sometimes people they misclick, they drag. I've seen people do it all the time. Well, you'll hear it, right? But to find where it is, like if you did have 40 tracks in there and you just something's off somewhere and you don't know what it is, you could chase it around for a while. But if all of the tracks were lined up perfectly and if something did get dragged out of the way, all of a sudden you see, oh, it stands out at you. Say, oh, that one right there. Okay, slide it right back and you're good.
Yeah, it's nice
But that's
visually nowadays. It's getting easier to actually see where there's inconsistencies. No, slide it back over.
Exactly. Or even better is if something did get something did slide out of the way and you notice right away, undo is your friend with these types of things.
Oh shit!
Undo before the save.
I undo all the time.
Yep. Because I have people that they'll shift something over and then they'll just try to shuffle it back and then they'll replay it and listen to it and try to shuffle it again. It's like just take that step back because now it was like it was before where it was perfect. Rather than trying to put it back somewhere, now you're making a change and trying to undo that change with a second change rather than just undoing it.
Yeah,
so
well,
you're better off.
and think of how many undo backs you can go. Like, I usually don't have to go more than 3. If I do,
and that's why
it's like with music. If I undo 3 times, like I don't know where I'm at that point. It's like shit.
For me, it's usually with like doing recordings and what have you. Like we'll record a take and somebody's like, oh no, wait, start it over again because they got 5 seconds into the take and they make a mistake or something. So you can just do the undo recording. So you just edit undo recording and you're right back to where you were. Okay, here we go again. Get it done again. But all of those, any of those changes, that's why I am a big fan of the undo. And there's always the redo option as well. So you can undo and then I went too far, you redo, then you get back a step. But
again, on the redo side, it's like sometimes when you undo 2, your redo doesn't always go back 2.
No, it should only go back 1. You're going step by step. So like you undo the first thing, or that was the most recent thing you did.
Yeah, but
then you undo again.
But
and then
trying to get back, like with the too many undos, trying to go back to a redo. Like, okay, I didn't want to undo this much, and going back, sometimes it doesn't come back. Like sometimes it gets stuck at a layer right next to where you undid the last.
Yeah, you got to catch it right away. So like that's why the first instinct, rather than trying to do another change to fix a mistake, is to undo the mistake and then just go on from there. And that way you don't have to worry about that.
And it's much easier when you're doing takes in making tracks than when you're mixing. Because when I'm mixing, I might do 10 things at the same time.
Yeah, and that's why you got to really watch it. But having a good workflow helps with that as well, because you do things in a similar format or a similar order each time, so that now you're going to do this, now you're going to do that, and by keeping things kind of in their buckets, in the order that you normally do them, you're staying on task.
Yeah, workflow would make a good topic one night.
No, absolutely.
I'll hunt for a bunch of music workflow suggestions.
Yeah, and we can look at a whole bunch of different types of software with that.
And that's one I bet you we can get some of the guys in the back like talking about their workflow.
Absolutely.
Because
Maybe even get them to
Jason,
take a little sample.
Jason is like the ultimate king of workflow. Like
Oh, yeah.
he has influenced all of us.
Yep. And even just again taking a short video of of what we normally see in Zoom, where when he's working on something, if he's sharing his screen and you just see what he's working on there, it doesn't have to be a specific talking about doing this and doing that and doing the other, but just seeing how the flow goes, because again that's part of how it works. But just getting an idea of how it works in that software versus another software and seeing how people use it like that. We could talk with we'll see what Creative Sauce has over there, because he's always got great things for flow there as well.
And he
for
just
different ways of using the software.
He relocated a couple months ago, so he's in a new studio.
Oh, nice.
We'll definitely have to check him out.
Yep.
Oh, and speaking of workflow, another one who has an incredible one, Jake, who was on with us last week. He took that challenge of writing a love song that broke all the rules. I mean, he broke all the rules. Cliches up the yang, contrast all over the place, and just an amazing example of when you know the rules, you know how you can break them and still make a great hit song, because I really think he's got something here.
Nice. Definitely got to check this out.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Now this was over in the Zoom. Like, this was our preview, so like it's got all of us in there. I couldn't help but crack up at some of the things he was doing, because he had a hard time keeping a straight face. When it's almost like doing a comedic version of a song, except it's a serious love song. It's
absolutely
just cliche as fuck.
Yep. Written and completely from beginning concept to done in a week.
Oh, I've got to accept that before. Hold on. Okay, back to it.
Thank you. Thank you, Ange.
Once upon a time.
What's going on that?
Oh, I've got to accept that before. Hold on. Okay, back to it.
Thank you. Thank you, Ange.
Once upon a time in a world so divine, you stole my heart with a love so fine. Our love's no secret, it's plain to see. Together forever, just you and me. Every rose has its thorn, but our love will never be worn. Like a moth to a flame we're drawn. In this cliche love song we'll carry on. We've been through it, thick and thin, my dear. Our love's a constant, showing no fear. Love is blind, but it can't hide the passion burning deep inside. Two peas in a pod will always be bound by love, forever free. Time stands still, but when we embrace, in this cliche love song our hearts will race. opposites attract, that's a fact. In each other's arms we're intact. Time flies when we're having fun. Two hearts beating, we become one. Love's a battlefield, we know it's true. But hand in hand, we'll make it through. We'll point the town red night after night. In this cliche love song, our love shines bright. Our love story is written in the stars. Hand in hand, we'll travel far. Love conquers all, that's what they say. In this cliche love song, forever sway. Every rose has its thorn, you see, but our loves will never be one. Like a moth to a flame we're drawn. In this cliche love song, we'll carry on.
That's awesome.
I love the face he made right at the end.
Exactly. But that is a typical day in the Zoom, just hanging out there, and somebody starts into something, but that's particularly good. I love seeing the live playing.
Oh, and I love somebody who takes a challenge on like that. Like he's like,
Yes,
I will break all those rules and write a song.
and get it done, and a great song at that. Loved it. Love the feel. Love the emotion behind the voice and the vocals. Very solid.
Oh, and even when he's joking, his sound always sounds serious, which makes for the best like musical comedy, because good musical comedy has great serious sounding music to very funny scenarios.
Absolutely. You just reminded me of the whole classical music thing. We were talking about doing a classical day one time, and when we do, we'll definitely have to hit some of the classical music in cartoons, because that's some of my favorite usage.
Oh, you tell me when we're doing our classical night, and I will get to work.
Yep. And we're probably also going to look at like blues sometime. I think we got that thinking about. We did some funk a couple times, so we'd get into that. There's definitely some good categories we can hit for those types of
Well,
things.
funk will lead
We'll
to
hit it all.
blues.
Yeah, exactly.
And we got some bluesmen on Band Lab, so I
Oh yeah,
will reach out to them.
exactly. But I think we're just about set for tonight. Thanks everybody for coming out.
Yeah, that was
Always up for.
that was an awesome collection. May the fourth be
Absolutely.
with you.
May the fourth be with you.
Even though
And
it's
thanks for
the
joining us.
fifth.
Talking IT with Glenn and Tony.
Till next time.
See y'all next time. Little ambient noise, yeah.
So now you're grabbing some Band Lab clips.
Now for me, that would also be something where I would use like volume automation and like bring that from the bottom, like bring it in and then bring it back out.
And these are the kinds of sounds you can stretch. With this AI, like stretching it actually can be cool.
Oh, that was perfect for the interlude too.
Ends it right in the right
I
spot.
didn't even notice. 40. I didn't even realize the texture faded out at the interlude until it happened. I'm like, wait a minute.
Sometimes you just, it was just meant to be that way.